Okay, we're in order. Vote yes on your voting machine if you're here. Okay, P&E is in order. We have
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We've got a couple of administrative things to take care of. First, we've got a certificate of election and oath of office for Senator Hackworth. Senator Hackworth, you'll have to be voted as abstaining on this, but I'd like for somebody to move that the certificate has been examined and that the oath of office and certificate of election of Senator T. Travis Hackworth, and you found them to be in proper order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Senator Hackworth, you abstained. That motion passes. Okay, before we get to the first bill, the whole idea was to get through as many of these bills as possible, but I've been very liberal in the terms of allowing anyone who wanted their bill to go by for the day to go by. So the bills that will go by today, upon a motion, I'll ask for a motion. Senator Bill 45, Senator Peterson, Senate Bill 80, Senator Stanley, Senate Bill 85, Senator Stanley, Senate Bill 118, 133, 234, 235, 236. Senator Chase has all those bills. Senate Bill 283, Hanger. Senate Bill 459, 460, 552, Chase. 568, Stewart. 588, 605, Chase. Senate Bill 495 from McClellan, Senate Bill 370 from Bell, Bill 390 from Obenchain, Senate Bill 556 from Ruff, Senate Bill 66, 67, 3, and 233 from Suderline. I'd ask for a motion to take those bills by for the week.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, Senator Peterson, Senator Locke have committee bills, or they have committees to chair, and Senator Peterson, you have what, one bill left or two bills?
I've got two bills, and hopefully at least the first one will go pretty quickly. The second one maybe also.
Okay, what's the first one?
Let's start with Senate Bill 209, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is an amendment to Title 24.2-406, which is the statute having to do with the registered voter file and the fact that candidates for a reasonable price can obtain a list of the registered voter file. And I think it was always everybody's understanding, perhaps unconsciously, that the information that was on a voter file was confidential information. It was private, and it was not something that was to be shared in public. And like a few of y'all, I got something in my mailbox a few days before the election. Actually wasn't about me. It was about my daughter, or one of my three daughters, and basically criticizing her for not having a perfect voting history and comparing it to other people in our neighborhood. And I was a little bit shocked to get that. I looked at the code. There was no prohibition on it. Obviously, information in a voter file is something we talk about as candidates. We talk about with our consultants or with our staff. But the idea that it could be shared in public, somebody's voting history, in a way that could be used, frankly, to embarrass them, I did not think was appropriate. So what I've done is brought a bill to basically say that information needs to stay in-house in a campaign. And I think to be a little bit more precise in my language, I did have a substitute prepared, but I think I can do this better on the fly. On line 44, where it says, shall disclose the voting history of any individual on such list to any third party, I'd strike to any third party, which is too broad, and just say, in a public mailing or marketing campaign, period, full stop. And I think the point would be that you cannot take voter file information and put people on blast. And I think that's just common sense. So
Okay.
I would make that
Does everybody
amendment.
understand the amendment? You would strike the word shall to a third party and replace with a public mailing or marketing campaign.
Right.
Does everybody understand the amendment? That's what Senator Peterson requested.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McDougal.
this might be this is a question for Senator Peterson.
Yes, sir.
I totally understand your frustration, and I heard from a number of people who got similar pieces in the mail. But isn't the fact of whether you vote or don't vote a matter of public record? And how do you then say you can use this for one type of speech and not another type of speech? That just really concerns me.
Well, you could vote against the bill then. I mean, we make these distinctions all the time.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McDougal.
I don't think we do. I think if we say that something is publicly available, I mean, so that's one question. But then if it is publicly available, I don't think we have the authority under the First Amendment of the United States or the Virginia Constitution to then say, well, you can only use it for one type of thing, but not from another. So that's my question to you. Why do you think this does not violate the Constitution?
Well, first of all, this information, just on its face, you're limited in how you can use it. You're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to, for example, sell it to a commercial database. So there's already restrictions on it. My only point is that this information is given to you in trust. You can use it. It's a matter of, again, we don't have a state law right now. You can vote against my bill and say it's okay to put somebody up on a billboard or in an advertising campaign and say this person has only voted in 2 of the last 5 elections or none of the last 5 elections and use that to embarrass them, and maybe that incentivizes them to vote more. I don't find that to be compelling. In terms of First Amendment issue, I got to be honest, I've never thought about somebody's voting history, their personal voting history being something that's have First Amendment value. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of public concern. I mean, unless they're, like I said, well, I don't see it being a First Amendment issue. Again, you could challenge it. I'll call the new AG. And
One more question. So would you believe that if this bill were to pass, and somebody ran against you in a nomination process and did not vote for you in a Democratic primary, would this prohibit you from disclosing that to all the other members in your district?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it may be that you exempt candidates. I think, again, I've just never seen this done before in a public campaign.
Senator Peterson, I think Senator McDougal may have broken the code, but to get this in the proper order, let's consider the amendment
Okay.
that Senator Peterson requested. Do I have a motion on that amendment?
Could that be read again, the amendment?
The amendment is to replace the language "to any third party" within a public mailing or marketing campaign. Now,
Okay.
we don't have legislative services yet, so
You don't need it. I got it.
Speaking to the amendment,
we do.
Okay, tell you what, I'm going to make what's going to call the McDougal Amendment. Shall disclose the voting history of any individual on such list in a public mailing or marketing campaign, comma, unless the subject of such advertisement is a candidate himself. Period, full stop.
second that motion.
Thank you.
Or I'd like to move that amendment or agree with it.
That amendment, do you understand that amendment? Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Senator McClellan,
I have a question.
you're speaking to the amendment.
I guess,
We can
To
get
both-
past the amendment, and then you can ask for,
yeah, we can do that.
okay, with an all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, the bill's amended. Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I read this bill, the only entity as enumerated that would be prohibited from doing what you're trying to prohibit are those that purchase the list directly from the Department of Elections. But anyone who gets it secondhand would not be affected by your bill.
I think that's correct, and I think if they get it secondhand, then frankly, we have less control over it. I mean, let's say, for example, you put out a Facebook post saying, I didn't vote in the last election because I found these people disgusting. And then that Facebook post is later used against you. I mean, you can't, there's no blanket prohibition. I'm just saying information you get from the RVL, that's what we're talking about.
Right, but follow up, Ms.
Senator McClellan.
But I guess, so let me give you an example. So I'm not sure this bill is really going to prohibit what you want prohibited. It's just going to give an extra hurdle to using it. So for example, if the Libertarian Party buys a voter file or buys a voter list from the Department of Elections, and then the Libertarian Party gives that file or sells that file to a Libertarian candidate, your bill would not prohibit the Libertarian candidate from using it because it says no candidate, political party, political action committee, et cetera,
Nope.
receiving a list furnished under this section. But this section only deals with lists furnished by the Department of Elections directly.
Okay, but this is, if I might, Mr. Chair, This section says, such lists as furnished by the Department of Elections shall be furnished to no one else and shall be used only for campaign and political purposes and for reporting to constituents. So if somebody gets this list and sells it to a third party, they've already broken the code. They're already in violation of the code.
The language he's talking about is up on lines 21 and 22.
You're not allowed to sell this voter file or the voter file information.
You're right, thank you.
Okay, are there additional questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Reeves.
Senator Peterson, what's
Yes,
the
sir.
punishment if you do?
Well, there's a default, and what is it, a class 1 misdemeanor? Yeah.
Additional questions. Senator Boysko, I apologize. I had Eben and Boysko. I wasn't looking at the machine. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr.
Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have as I read this, I have a little bit of concern here in how this is going to be interpreted. Because as a candidate myself, when I'm running, I ask my vendor to look at the voting history of my voters. And then that is how we select who we are going to be communicating with. I fear that an unintended consequence, and maybe you can help me feel better about this, would be that somehow we would be prohibited from sharing that information, me, the political candidate, sharing that, revealing their voter history to the third party could stop me from being able to decide which voters I want to communicate with.
Well, I can't stop you from being concerned. It just says you shall not disclose the voting history of any individual in such list in a public mailing or marketing campaign. So, again, if you want to put out a mailer saying, young lady Peterson has only voted in 2 of the last 5 elections, and that's part of your strategy, I can't, that is going to be a problem. But if you want to share it with your vendor, talking to your vendor is not a public mailing or a marketing campaign. Look, I get it. The state party doesn't want this bill, okay? I'll make no doubt about it. So, this is a limitation on the state parties.
I'm not sure we've heard from either of the state parties.
Well,
Senator Eben.
I just wanted to thank the senator for bringing the bill. I think with the amendment, it's a little bit tighter. A number of us have gotten complaints about those kinds of postcards, and I know one of my local registrars told me that voters are being harassed following the release of their voting data. I've had people call me up personally and say, why are these people telling me that I don't have a good voting record? It's none of their business, and why are they mailing it to my neighbors? When you register to vote, there's an expectation that you're not running an advertisement on your history. And I don't think we need to invade people's privacy that way. So I hope we'll pass it, and at the appropriate time, I have a motion.
Unless there are other questions or comments, I think Senator Eben, it's time for the motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move to report as amended.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Are there people in the public who want to speak on the bill?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There are no hands in support. Anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak opposed to the bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chairman, there are no speakers at this time.
Okay, are there people in the audience who want to speak on this bill? Hearing none, Senator Eben, I think.
Yeah,
it's
I
time for
move
your
to
motion.
report the bill as amended.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion and a second. Are there other motions? Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, vote yes. Opposed, vote no.
Ayes 7, noes 8.
Senator Peterson, do you have another bill?
I do. All right.
Okay, this bill is similar to Senator Morrissey's, and I've asked him to be here because they're inconsistent. They're the same. What's the bill number?
Senate Bill 44.
Okay, Senate Bill 44, and Senator Morrissey, what's your bill number?
Senate Bill 111.
Okay. Turn your attention to Senator Peterson and then Senator Morrissey. I think Senate Bill 44, Senate Bill 111.
Okay, and if with your permission, Mr. Chair, I think what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and make my presentation. I'll happy to turn it over to Morrissey, and then I got to run down and gavel in the Natural Resources Committee. So this is Senate Bill 44. This is a bill that I've had for the last several years, which deals with campaign contribution limits. The language should look familiar. It's the same language I had last year. It deals with a cap of $20,000 per cycle. I've had the very astute commentary that this would give an advantage to the House of Delegates over the Senate, which is outrageous. So if somebody wanted to make an amendment to make it an annual cap, I'm perfectly fine with that. I've also heard commentary that where you have a self-funded candidate, that can be an issue that other people, sort of a unilateral disarmament, I think might be the correct phrase. My point is only that I don't believe that supersized donations, particularly in local races. I'm less concerned about our races, but local races, I've seen where supersized donations have really tilted the playing field, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not in really keeping with the democratic traditions of this state or this nation. I do think it's appropriate to have some level of limits on supersized donations. Obviously, we've had a federal limit for almost my lifetime, so clearly that has been compliant with the First Amendment. But I do recognize that there's a lot of people say, well, as long as you have full disclosure, it's okay. I just feel the other way. I do believe it's important to have some level of regulation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
And Senator Bell's got a question. I think Senator Morrissey, the difference between your bill and Senator Peterson's bill is you go to 25 where he went to 20. Is that correct?
That is one of the differences in my bill, and I'm not sure, would allow the candidate himself or herself to spend whatever she or he wants to spend on their respective
Well,
campaign.
that's going to happen anyway because of the First Amendment, isn't it?
Right.
Yep. Okay, Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the patron for this bill. I spoke with Senator Peterson about this earlier, and I would like to offer two amendments, and I wanted to just do it while he's here, so before he has to go, I understand he has to go. The first one would be on line 19, to his point, 20,000, and I would like to insert the word annually after that figure. And if you want me to do the second one now, or
Well, you can just do them in a block.
okay, the second one, my concerns, as Senator Peterson said, I'm concerned that if you're a person of average means running for office, and you're running against someone who's very wealthy who could self-fund, that we need to give an out in that case. And I've looked at these laws in other states around the country, and that's exactly what they've done. They would call it a self-funder exemption. So if someone would self-fund a campaign over 50% of the amount in the campaign, then there would be an exemption. So then you could actually go above these limits if that were to happen. For instance, if a candidate ran and put, I don't know, let me just pick a figure out of the air, $20 million, their own money, into a race, then that limit would be lifted. So that's what I'm talking about. And I would, Mr. Chairman, add that.
Do you have specific language for that, or?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Add it to line 26, which is in section C, which sets forth the limits. And I would just add an item 4 there, shall not apply if opposing candidate were to fund 50% or more of their campaign. I'm open if the council would want to change that, but I think that would get us where we need to go. I'm seeing a head nod. Maybe, does that sound about right?
Senator Evans has got a point on that, I think.
Yeah,
Senator
Mr.
Peake, was your point on the bill itself or on the amendment?
On the bill itself. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
let's talk about this
I just want to say, on Senator Bell's amendment about the self-funding, when you say 50% of a campaign, what if the campaign is only a $5,000 campaign and your opponent spends $2,500, then you don't have limits anymore in your contribution. So I don't know that that's well thought out. I think you might want to make it above a certain dollar amount if that's your goal.
Mr. Chairman.
The amount of money spent.
Senator Surville.
I'm not really clear how this amendment would work. I don't know how you know how much a campaign costs until the campaign's over. I don't know exactly when you make that assessment that they've spent the half. A lot of time the reports don't come out until 15 days after the money's been spent. I'm not really clear when that threshold or rule would kick in. There's also lots of ways a candidate could spend money outside their own campaign account through 501c4s or 527s or other organizations to run the number up without it being reported on their own report. It doesn't seem to me to be a workable amendment. I would just note that.
Senator Bell, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Two things we could do to, I hear your concerns. One would be we could tie that to the latest report, public report, and/or we could also say it would not kick in unless the amounts were greater than the annual amounts of contributions. So, for instance, if it was a $5,000 campaign, then it would not apply. Council, I don't know if you've got a better way of wording that, but
Senator Bell, let me ask you this: what would happen if you find out the week before the election the guy's just put $100,000 into his campaign, his own campaign? How would you have, as an individual candidate, how would you have the ability to catch up with something like that?
in that case, that would be over the limit, so I think that would take care of the problem
No,
right there.
the individual, if a self-funded candidate put $100,000 of his own money into the campaign, how would you have the opportunity to catch up with that? You wouldn't.
Mr. Chairman, I would respond to say you wouldn't probably now, or even if this were to pass. So you'd probably be in a bad situation either way it goes, but at least this would try to, I think there needs to be some out, because I think it's wrong to put limits on candidates for donations if we're not going to put it on both sides. And if, I understand the issues, and it's always dangerous to make these amendments on the fly. I appreciate the patron being willing to talk with me on this, but without those amendments, I don't think it's a fair piece of legislation. I have to vote against it if we can't do
Senator
that.
Peake, you just wanted to speak to the bill, not the amendment, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question of the patron.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peterson, Senator Peterson, you were
Yes, sir.
talking, you said you weren't so concerned about us, but you were concerned about local elections. And has this bill does not address, and by local, I take it, would that mean Commonwealth's attorneys' elections?
That would be one of the categories.
Do we need to add that? Is that in here? Attorney General or the General Assembly, I'm looking at A, shouldn't you add?
Defined in 24.2-947.
And does that include Commonwealth's attorneys? Because, like Senator Bell, let's say like somebody from out of state or even out of the country wanted to contribute $1 million to a particular Commonwealth's attorney candidate. Would this bill apply to that?
Well, I got to be honest. I was under the impression that it did, and I don't see it specifically articulated unless it's under 24.2-947. Obviously, I would, if it applied to the General Assembly, it should apply to local offices. No doubt about that.
That might just be an amendment that we'd want to make if it's not in council, may know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peake. Senator Spruill.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the part that deal with putting money in your own campaign money in is to Chap Peterson. Any way we can make that for just for North Virginia folks, and because the key with this, North Virginia folks have got a lot of money. I have 5 granddaughters, and I'm not rich, and they expect property to send them to school, what have you. And if I live in North Virginia, I could do that, chap. I live in Chesapeake.
I've been to your house. Yeah.
So the bill is fine, except the part about my own money. My granddaughter will kill me by vote for this. Thank you.
The thing I worry about the amendment is on the fly. I don't know that we can get it right. I mean,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Boysko.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a kind of a broader suggestion, since this is so complicated, that we table the amendment and we look at perhaps setting this up as a study that would, this bill.
Senator Boysko, there was a study last year pursuant to a Bouleville resolution, and it was only for 1 year, and it had a December 1 report date or November 1 report date, I think. And we met several times, and we never did come to conclusions on things. And a lot of the things where we couldn't develop consensus, we just punted on. Now, my understanding was Delegate Bouleville was going to have a resolution to try to carry on a second year of study. I don't know if that's happened or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just am feeling like we are trying to decide this on the fly, and I don't think we're getting it right. I have co-sponsored this bill in the past. I absolutely support the intent, but I'm not feeling as comfortable about getting it right at this point.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll simply say that this is a much more lenient standard than what you see at the federal level. I mean, listen, the guys, this is the JV. You know, this is a 20,000 per cycle or 20,000 per annum. It's hard to imagine a more generous, more forgiving standard. So I get it philosophically. If you don't want any limits, then vote against the bill.
I think the federal limit now is $2,700 per cycle, but the self-funded candidate still has the ability to influence that campaign
No doubt about it.
dramatically.
No doubt about it.
So, Mr. Chairman,
2,900.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Mason.
so we have an amendment before us, correct?
We have an amendment before us, yes.
So we'll act on the amendment first and then move to the final bill?
Okay, we can act on the amendment. Do we have a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, and the more we think about this, I do feel the dangers of doing these amendments on the fly. And I think that these are not, we're not at the 100% solution on this. So I'm going to withdraw the amendments I've made. And I don't know if we want to act on this or if there's consensus to pass it by, if you want to work on it. But I don't think we should do those on the fly because I think there's still issues to be done there. So I think as we tried it, but I have to agree with some of the points that are made on there. I'm not sure we want to do this on the fly.
And with Senator Reeves or Congressman Reeves reminded me that we've got a $2,900 limit at the federal level now, not $2,700. I wasn't up to speed, and I apologize for that. Is there a motion on the bill? Senator Vogel, I apologize. And Senator McClellan.
That's okay, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make a quick observation. I understand 100% what the motives are of the patrons, and they are worthy. We also know that, or at least my belief, and I think a lot of people share this, is that contributions are speech. And so when you start to influence who can make contributions and where, all that does is drive that effort to contribute and to speak into a different place. And it often drives it into places where we don't want it, where we can't see it. So, for example, we've seen what has happened at the federal level. So the contributions actually don't go through campaigns where there's a lot of transparency. It's been pushed to places where there isn't any transparency and to outside groups where we don't know who participates. And my concern here is exactly what Senator Bell raised. You create an environment where if you don't have an amendment like the one Senator Bell proposed, then what you have is 100% of an even unlevel playing field where you have people who can self-fund and people 100% go and solicit people for campaigns who can self-fund. So immediately when there's a seat that somebody's interested in filling and they want a competitive candidate, they immediately go out and advocate and try to incentivize the wealthiest person that they can find who is a self-funder. And so that those limits then obviously don't apply to that person, and they can write a $15 or $20 million check. And Virginia is full of candidates like that. And as Senator Spruill would say, there are lots of them in Northern Virginia.
She's from Northern Virginia.
I'm from ish. Right. And so I would say that I really, really respect what Senator Bell was trying to do because that is 100% the right thing to do. But if it can't be accomplished, because for all the reasons that people have mentioned on this committee, there isn't a perfect solution. Because when do you know that you've reached the threshold? When do you know how much that person's going to put in? And so it gets me right back to the beginning of the comment that I made, which is contributions are speech. And when you set up artificial barriers to speech, people find ways around it. And I think sunlight is the best way. And if you create opportunities for anybody who wants to run to go out and sell what it is that they believe in, and that incentivizes a lot of people to contribute to their campaign, they may have a better message that's way more compelling than the person that can self-fund, and they may raise an equivalent amount of money or even a lot more. And I just feel like everybody ought to have a shot, and the field ought to be as level as it can be. And so without a perfect solution here, I advocate for keeping it the status quo. It's imperfect, but it's, I think, in Virginia, as good as we can get right now, without a better solution that drives money into places where we can't see it. And I can promise you that is not a better way to do it.
Senator McClellan, your name has disappeared from the list. Is that, you don't wish to speak?
Well, I wanted to speak, I guess I want to offer another amendment. I think the amendment that made the limits per year was pretty self-explanatory and not complicated. And so at a minimum, I think we should at least include that, and I would so move.
Okay, you wish to trim back the amendment to have $20,000 annually. Does everybody understand that amendment? Is there a second on that? Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, the bill's before us. Opposed, no? No. Okay, count your no, raise your hands if you're no. Okay, 3, 4, 5 noes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, before Senator Morrissey wants to roll into mine, and like I said, if I could get rolling.
Put them both together is fine, yes. Okay. Can I have a?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. That's what I suggested. We roll SB 111 into Senator Peterson's bill. But if I could just make a couple of comments, because I want to address Senator Vogel's comments, which I thought were very appropriate. My bill is very similar to Senator Peterson's, but I want the chairman and the members to consider the following. Virginia is one of only 5 states that allows unlimited campaign contributions, the others being Alabama, Nebraska, Oregon, and Utah. The other thing to consider is this. Some contribution limits are done by office. For example, Wisconsin, per term, you can only pay contribute up to $20,000 per statewide campaign, $2,000 per Senate candidate, $1,000 per Assembly candidate. And others specify the limit in which the contributions can come from, be it a PAC, a corporation, or an individual. So I think when you consider Senator Vogel, because I was listening to your comment, I thought it was very appropriate about the campaigns, the contributions being speech. But when you consider what 45 other states have done, I think that we are behind the pack. And when we allow a candidate to receive $600,000 in a primary, the House of Delegates, and that's 99% of his money raised, and it came from one person. That's wrong. And with regard to the people that are self-funders, you know what? That often has a backlash. Somebody looks at that person and says, oh, they have unlimited amounts of funds for themselves and they're spending it. There's a bit of a backlash. So there's a washing effect. So thank you for allowing me to make those comments, and thank you for rolling SB 11 into...
Do I have a motion to roll 111 to 44 and make Senator Morrissey a chief co-patron?
Thank you.
Okay, this is a recorded vote, so everybody in favor say, vote aye. And if you're opposed, vote no.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Move to report. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a substitute motion? Okay. Substitute motion takes precedence. All in favor of passing the bill by, definitely vote aye. Opposed, vote no.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Okay, the bill's gone. Okay, now I want to go back to the schedule and what the Senate Joint Resolution 12, 13, 39, and 40 are are Governor Northam's appointments from last year. I assume that everybody's had an opportunity to review these.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I just missed it, but were these on the docket that was set out yesterday?
Senator, I was going to take up Senator Locke if she was here. She's got a meeting to chair. I apologize. Is that what you were telling me?
No.
I'll be here.
Okay, I apologize. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I have 2, Senate Joint Resolution 1 and Senate Bill 21, and they go together. Senate Joint Resolution 1 is a second reference of a constitutional amendment. And the constitutional amendment amends Section 1, Article 2 of the Constitution, dealing with the qualification of voters and the right to vote. And this would basically says that the right to provides that every person who meets the qualification of voters as set forth in the Constitution have the fundamental right to vote in the Commonwealth, and that this right to vote shall not be abridged by law except for individuals who are incarcerated. However, once that person has been, that is, people who are incarcerated who have been convicted of a felony.
Senator Locke, this is the same bill we had last year.
Same
and
one as
Senate
last
Bill
year.
21 is the one that
Same
puts it
as
on the
last
ballot.
year, this is second reference.
Okay. Does everybody understand the resolution? Okay, is there a second? Okay, are there substitute motions? Would all in favor vote aye, opposed vote no on Senate Joint Resolution 1?
Ayes 9, nays 5.
Ayes none, nays 5. That's Senate Joint Resolution 1 passes. And Senate Bill 21 is the bill that puts it on the
That puts
ballot.
this on the count, on the,
Does everybody understand how that works? Okay, is there a second? Okay, are there substitute motions? Open the roll and all in favor vote aye. Opposed? Nay.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Okay. Senator Locke, your bill passes.
Thank you very
Your
much, I
bills
appreciate it.
pass. Okay. Senator,
Please don't call me that.
I apologize. Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, maybe I just missed it yesterday when I was reviewing it, but did you add these 4 resolutions on this morning, or were
No,
they?
I didn't, no. They've been on there for at least a
Okay,
week.
well, I just missed it. My question then, and I would have asked this beforehand, is of some of the confirmations are for people that are no longer in the positions that would be confirming them
There are a
for.
bunch of them that are that way, but I think they have, just as a matter of, they have to be confirmed so we can, well, they've already been paid for in some positions. They've
Mr.
already gotten
Chair,
positions.
I was not, I've only got sentenced to this committee in the last 2 years, so I was not here when this process went 4 years ago, so.
We've not done anything differently than it's been done in the past with these resolutions.
Mr. Chairman, maybe if, after the meeting, Brooks or Meg or somebody could kind of tell me about that part of the process, how we're confirming somebody who's no longer in a position to be confirmed.
I'm sure they can help, but I don't, what we're doing is basically confirming what's already happened. For example, when a secretary leaves the office in the 4th year of a governorship, and they often do, that position has to be filled, but it only lasts through the inauguration or whenever that person leaves office. This Constitution still requires that we confirm the appointments. So that's been the process I've been on this committee for 20 years, and it's the way we've always done it. Maybe it's not the right thing, but it's the way we've always done it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just a
I understand.
little country lawyer, and
I
so
understand.
when I see somebody who is no longer a cabinet secretary and voting on it, it just causes, and each of these have a couple of those individuals, and so I just had a question. So I'll probably throw up an abstention just so I get that question answered, not because I dislike any of them.
Okay, that's
Mr.
fine.
Chairman,
Senator Surville.
I would move that we take up Senate Joint Resolutions 12, 13, 39, and 40 in a block and move to report them.
Okay.
Second.
Can we vote on these in a block? Is that all right, Mr.? Okay. Well, then, unless there's further discussion, I would ask the clerk to open the roll. All in favor, vote aye. Vote opposed, vote nay. And if you're not certain, vote yellow.
Thanks for this costing us 5 minutes, McDougal.
Ayes 12, no 0, abstentions 3.
Okay, the next thing's on the docket. Senators Marsden and Favola have Senate Bills 33 and 131. that have to do with a compact with regard to towing over the Potomac River. Senator Marsden asked that his bill be rolled into Senator Favola's bill that's a little bit broader. So I would ask for that
I would
motion.
move that motion.
Okay. Motion and a second to the bills be, that Senator Marsden be rolled in, be made a chief co-patron. Is there, all in favor, say aye. Aye. It's a recorded vote? Okay. We're rolling 33 into 131. Okay, now the motion is recorded. All in favor, vote yes. Okay, the bill's rolled in. Senator Vogel, she's having a box problem. Record her as a yes on that. Okay, 131 is before us. It has to do with towing over the Potomac River. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very simple bill. It amends the compact on towing, and the compact is between Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. But what the bill actually does is it renames the 14th Street Bridge to the Arlen D. Williams Jr. Memorial Bridge, and it permits a name change if it's so appropriate in the future for any bridges.
And that's the language down on lines 24 and 25.
That is correct.
That no matter what the bill's named, you've got a right to tow it.
That's correct.
Okay.
The only thing I will say this will not take effect until the other partners actually amend the compact.
Okay.
That's the bill.
Are there any questions for Senator Favola?
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask, who is this?
Senator Spruill.
Who is this guy?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Spruill, I don't know who this man is. I am
Chairman,
carrying this
I
on
have the answer.
the behalf of VDOT.
Servel's got an answer.
Wikipedia says he was a passenger on Air Florida Flight 90. I think he was the guy who saved all his people then drowned.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, are there people in the public who wish to be heard on this bill? Are there those in the electronic world, in the Netherlands?
Those in the Zoom who would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand now. Those in the Zoom who would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chair, there are no public comments at this time.
Do we have a motion on this bill?
Move to report.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to report the bill. Are there further motions? Is there any discussion? Clerk, open the roll. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, vote nay.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay, the bill reports. Senator Hashmi, Senate Bill 257.
I have one other bill, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very quick. May I, since I'm up here?
Okay, what's your bill?
It's Senate Bill 318, has to do with campaign finance. But I can,
We might want to just kill that bill. I don't know.
oh, no, you don't want to kill it. This is a transparency bill. You don't want to kill it. Has nothing to do with campaign limits or all that.
Okay, is that on a docket?
It is on the docket. Do you choose to hear it today, or?
Okay. Okay. And I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, but, okay, problem. Okay, if you just want to explain the bill then.
Yeah, I would like to explain it. Okay, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is for third parties who wish to advertise without consulting with the candidate or the campaign, but they wish to issue an advertisement on either TV or radio or online or any other virtual platform, they have to disclose, they have to have a disclaimer that would list the top three contributors to their organization. And this is a bill that came out of our joint campaign. Do you remember the Joint Committee on Campaign Finance Reform? This was one of the issues we talked about, and it's supported by the group Money Out. And it's trying to get to some of the dark money that Senator Vogel was talking about, where dollars sometimes go to organizations, and those organizations have no obligation to disclose their donors. And this would apply to those organizations if they're trying to influence a campaign or a referendum question. And that's really the extent of the bill. There are speakers in the virtual world who
This was on the subcommittee that I was a part of.
Yeah, yes, sir. We discussed it, although we didn't take a formal vote on, but we
So it's
didn't
part
take
of
a
the
formal
discussion.
vote on any of the topics necessarily.
Are there questions or for the Senator Evans?
Senator Favola, I like the idea of disclosure in general, but I'm just wondering, what happens if you had 100 donors or 10 donors, and they each give $1,000? Which three do you disclose?
That's a good point, because you're saying they all gave the same amount.
Yeah, if there's not a top three,
Yeah,
maybe council could help us.
maybe
I don't know.
council could help. I don't have an answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if it's a tie.
Top three and ties.
Why not top 5, top 6, top 10?
And ties.
I would ask council to respond first before I accept an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben, there's no provision in there currently for how to break a tie like that. We could insert language that says if all the top donors have the same amount, then that many. So that many disclosures. So if 10 people have the same amount as the top donor, so if 10 people gave $10,000.
I would be happy to accept that amendment.
One other question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Eben.
Senator Favola, if we don't pass this bill and you have an independent expenditure or a committee that's named, just people who like Adam or whatever, and they spend the money right now, don't you find out who gave that money, or no? Who gave to that committee? You just
Well,
want it
the
in the moment?
candidate would have some obligation if the candidate knew that the money was spent.
Not a candidate committee, but a committee like the one that you're envisioning making report this. Right now, do they ever report who gave them the money? When they file with the SB, do they have to file with the SBE?
I don't believe they have to file the names of the individuals who gave them the money, but they do have to file. Or let me defer to council has a different answer, so he's probably more accurate.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Evans, so if an independent expenditure is made, depends on what kind of entity made the independent expenditure. If it was a committee, then they have to disclose as any committee. If it was some other kind of group that isn't covered under Chapter 9.3, they might not have to disclose their donors, but they would have to disclose that they made a independent expenditure of so much money, and it was for this candidate or against this candidate.
So it sort of depends where the organization falls in the code.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron. I don't see in here that it specifies what kind of candidate, and maybe I'm not reading it properly, but could this apply to a local candidate, a board of supervisors, a town council?
It says any candidate, so it's not
any candidate
running
around the
for a
Commonwealth.
political office, so it's not limiting. Would you say that's correct, council?
Mr. Chair, yes, Senator Favola.
And follow-up
Senator
question?
Favola. I'm sorry,
I'm
Senator Boysko. Yeah.
I know I have brown hair,
Yeah.
and I'm a woman.
I was mistaken for Senator Boysko today twice, and I thought, geez, that's a compliment.
This happens all the time. I just want to clarify. So if a C4 organization that is registered does an independent expenditure like, the Humane Society, would they be required to list their donors?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Boysko. So if a C4 made an independent expenditure, but that C4 and that C4 was registered as a PAC under 9.3, then yes, they would have to do the advertisement disclosure of all three, and they would also have to disclose any donors they had as the PAC. If they weren't acting as a PAC, so it's just the C4 spending from its own funds, if they don't advocate for or against a candidate, then they don't have to file as a PAC. But if they do advocate for or against a candidate, and that's their primary purpose, they would have to file as a PAC. If it wasn't their primary purpose, so they spent less than 50% of their funds on advertisements that mention candidates, then they wouldn't have to disclose in any reports, but they would have to disclose in the advertisement.
This is intended to pick up groups that are not currently required to do the disclosures.
Mr. Chair, I just want to confirm that that's actually what it's going to do.
Mr. Chairman,
It
Senator
sounds a
Briscoe,
little
we
bit broader
believe.
than what you wanted. Is that what your point is? Senator McDougal has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe Brooks can help me understand this as well. If I have a C4 and I want to say, call Mark Peak and tell him to stop casting bad votes for Senate Bill 318, is that going to be one where I'm going to have to discuss my donors? Did I have to advertise that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator McDougal. So under this bill, it creates a category called electioneering communications, which are the type of thing you're describing, where you don't mention vote for or vote against, but you say, tell Mark Peak to, whatever. So in that case, yes, you would have to, if you were C4, that would be an electioneering communication. It would be included in the kinds of communications that are independent expenditures, and therefore you would have to disclose your top 3 donors in the advertisement.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McDougal.
So, Brooks, I'll ask you this. What if Senator Hackworth contributed to my campaign and I funded the C4, then would only my campaign information end up running on those ads against Senator Peak?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McDougal, so if you were the top donor, I assume you're saying you're the top donor to the C4?
Say Senator Hackworth gave me money, and then I ran the ads against, I gave the money to a C4 to run ads against Senator Peak.
Okay. In that case, yes, the C4 would have to disclose that you were its top donor, but it would not have to disclose, it wouldn't have any information about Senator Hackworth, so it wouldn't disclose that.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
that's true of all the disclosures,
Senator
Mr.
Sturville.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for council. So, to follow on Senator McDougal's question, it seems to me all the independent expenditure answers flow from whether or not something is an electioneering communication. That right? Because it says it has to be an electioneering communication. And when I read the definition of an electioneering communication, the first element is that the person has to be a clearly identified candidate. And candidate is defined in 24.2.101, and a candidate is defined as a person who seeks or campaigns for an office of the Commonwealth or one of its governmental units in a general, primary, or special. But candidate does not include somebody who's already in office, correct? So that if somebody did the communication that Senator McDougal just described, and they haven't filed for a future election, but they're already in office, this would not be an electioneering communication, and it would not pick that up. So it would only apply after you have filed a statement of candidate during the year you're running for election, right?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Sturville, yes. And also, electioneering communications are only within 60 days of a election or 30 days of a primary, as it's written here. So that would also be another constraint.
I guess a lot of this would be spelled out in regulation, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we have to get the language here right. We
Okay.
can't depend on regulations.
No, I'm happy to
Okay,
stay
are there
as
other
long as you wish.
Are there people are there those in the public who would like to speak? In the Netherlands, maybe?
Mr. Chair, we have multiple speakers on Zoom. Tamala Berg, will you unmute and speak first?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Berg. I am a constituent of Senator Adam Eben. Today, I am testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia in support of SB 318. This bill addresses the need in Virginia to better define what is an electioneering expenditure and how to apply our rules to referenda elections. These changes better reflect how campaigns are currently financed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Who's next?
Nancy Smith, you are next.
Hi, my name is Nancy Morgan. I'm the coordinator for the Virginia chapter of American Promise. And we support this bill, which addresses many of the gaps in the Virginia Code related to disclosure and ensuring accountability for all ads, whether they're online, radio, TV, and print. And it additionally addressed, as was discussed, the important issue, the gaps in terms of addressing independent expenditures, as does a complementary bill submitted by Senator McPeak. And just to remind everybody, in the subcommittee on campaign finance, the Campaign Legal Center had made recommendations to the committee on implementing these very regulations, which are implemented in other countries or other states. And I'd like to particularly thank Senator Favola for her work on the joint subcommittee, as well as many of you on this panel, and for coming up with this really important bill, which mirrors a bill on the House side, Dan Helmer. And just to remind you, we did polling among Virginia citizens, and 88% of Virginians want improved disclosure in Virginia. Thank you very much.
Okay, Patricia Marseglia. Hope I didn't butcher your name.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I'm okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have lived in Arlington, Virginia for over 50 years, and I'm in Senator Evans' area. And the senator sitting next to him who is rich with grandchildren. Congratulations. I want to talk about big money in Arlington. And I will say that much of what you're talking and the way you talk is above me, my pay grade. So I'm going to talk about $49 million put into Mount Vernon Baptist Church on 23rd Street on April 2020. I want to talk about the fact that Academy Veritas owns the building and has 6 locations: Beijing, China; Shanghai, China; Zhejiang, China; Budapest; Fairfax County. I'm not real clear that what you're addressing is going to address foreign money, because in talking to some banks, they tell me, oh, we'll put the money in this account and you can fund it over there, and they'll help you do it. So I'm talking, and of course the money, the 49 million went into Burke and Herbert. It's a well-established bank in South Arlington. I think that, I think that every candidate should be accountable for every penny spent on his campaign. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Jessica Mott.
Jessica Mott, please.
Sorry, I just had difficulty unmuting. My name's Jessica Mott. I'm Barbara Favola's constituent and neighbor, and I thank her for this, and I want to just reiterate my support for the bill and for the importance of disclosure, and reinforce what Nancy Morgan said. I'm part of the Virginia chapter of American Promise.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Zaina Hutchison.
Yes, thank you. I actually want to also reiterate what Nancy and Jessica have said. My name is Zaina Hutchison. I am part of the American Promise Virginia chapter, Money Out Virginia. I do support this bill, and I also want to thank Senator Favola for working hard on this issue and working with us on this issue, and I do hope that it passes. As was mentioned already, 88% of Virginians call for full disclosure of campaign funds, and this bill pushes us in the right direction. So I really think it's an important bill, and I do hope that it gets the support it needs. Thank you very much for
Thank you. Lisa Sales.
Hi, Senators. Thank you. I, too, support the bill. I'm with the group Money Out Virginia. We are in Northern Virginia, and we are encouraging disclosure here in Northern Virginia, whether there's more money in this part of the state versus other part of the states. And this is a first step in the right direction. And thank you to Senator Barbara Favola for being a champion.
Thank you, ma'am. Mindy Mitchell.
Hello, yes, I am a member of the Virginia Money Out
chapter. And I would also like to thank Barbara Favola, who is and I am her constituent, one of her constituents. I do hope that this can be expanded so that we will actually be able to track the contributions in a transparent fashion online, because right now it's difficult to find them. So if they're registered, we don't want to find out so long after the election that it doesn't help us. But thank you very much for your efforts on our behalf.
Thank you, ma'am. Lee Williams.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Lee Williams. I'm co-director of Radio Deal Virginia, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there people in the netherworld who would like to speak against this bill?
If anyone in the Zoom room would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at this time, we have no one wishing to speak against the bill.
Are there people in the audience who would like to speak to this bill? Okay, the bill is before the committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servin.
Thank you. I just had a quick question for council because I've already heard this stated twice during this meeting. But can council confirm for me that it is illegal under federal law for foreign money to be spent in any race in this state?
No, sir, it is not legal under federal law to receive any contributions from a foreign source.
Right. Thank you.
Senator Spruill moves to report. Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second to report the bill. Are there other motions? Is there other discussion? All in favor of reporting the bill will vote yes.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Okay, the bill's reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the
Now
committee.
we're back to our schedule, and that's Senator Hashmi. I apologize for you waiting so long. Senator Hashmi has Senate Bill 257, which is a simple compact bill. Tell us about the bill, if you would, Senator.
No need to apologize, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, this is SB 257, and it is the Interstate Compact Bill. It's the counseling compact bill that will allow qualified professional counselors to practice in all states that join the compact. And this removes the need for counselors to obtain a separate license in every state in which they want to practice. As has been mentioned, this is an interstate compact, and it is quite similar to some of the other occupational licensure compacts. We passed one last year for occupational therapy. This compact authorizes interstate practice both in person and through telehealth by professional counselors who hold a valid, unrestricted home state license in a compact member state. The compact is in its formative stages right now, and it would not go into effect until 10 states have joined fully. It is an opportune moment for Virginia to join, because then Virginia would have the opportunity to develop some of the regulations and the standards for the interstate compact. 2 states have already joined and become members, Georgia and Maryland. North Carolina has pending legislation as well. This would allow really a strong regional relationship between Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. Some of the impacts and benefits is that we would have a shared interstate database of licensure and disciplinary information. It really helps our military families. Many military spouses are working in this industry, and they would not have to become re-credentialed every time there is a relocation. And so, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that Virginia can support this interstate compact and help our members who are counselors. They would be able to practice with greater ease and relocate with ease as well to continue in their particular practice.
This is an interstate effort, I assume. Is there a national group or something that this comes from?
There is a national group,
Okay.
and I believe we may have someone in the waiting room wishing to speak to this.
Okay. Are there questions of Senator Hashmi? Senator Eben.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Just to be clear, when you say a licensed professional counselor, that's different than an LCSW. This is for mental health counseling services, or what kind of counseling?
This is for mental health counseling.
And what's the Virginia? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Virginia equivalent is right now titled as a licensed professional counselor?
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Are there people in the public who would like to speak to this bill? People in the Zoom room?
If there is anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chair, we have multiple speakers.
Okay. Dominique Marcelic is the first one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Dominique.
Good afternoon, Chair Deeds and distinguished committee members. My name is Dominique Marslak, representing the American Counseling Association based in Alexandria, Virginia. On behalf of the American Counseling Association, representing 60,000 licensed professional counselors nationwide, including Virginia, I'm testifying in support of the Counseling Compact SB 257. I'd like to express my appreciation for your consideration of the compact, an important initiative seeking to eliminate barriers to interstate practice, improve patient access, and enhance public protection through a shared interstate data system. The Counseling Compact utilizes a mutual recognition model of interstate practice, whereby compact member states agree to recognize valid licenses issued by other member states. To utilize the compact, a professional counselor must have a license in good standing in their home state, which is their primary state of residence, and the home state must be a member of the compact. When a licensee wants to work in a member state known as a remote state, the licensee must obtain a privilege to practice from the Counseling Compact Public Commission, the interstate body composed of member state officials tasked with administering the compact upon its enactment of 10 states. A privilege to practice is equivalent to a license to practice professional counseling in the remote state. The Counseling Compact preserves the authority of each member state to protect public health and safety through existing state regulatory structure. So unlike national licensure initiatives that supersede state authority, an interstate compact allows the state to continue to determine the requirements for licensure in that state, as well as maintain that state's unique scope of practice for all professional counselors in that state. We do not anticipate substantial additional costs for states participating in the compact. The Counseling Compact does allow member states to offset any loss of revenue by charging an appropriate fee for the privilege to practice. There will also be a potential increase in the number of licensees in Virginia as practitioners who reside in but are not currently licensed in Virginia because they work elsewhere may choose to obtain a license in Virginia in order to access the compact. Membership in the Counseling Compact would confer many benefits to Virginia. It improves access to counseling services, enhances choice of professional counselors, preserves existing state-based licensure, creates an alternative path to licensure for holders of a privilege to practice, improves communication among states, so by mandating full participation in the licensure and disciplinary data system, by ensuring that all adverse actions and disciplinary sanctions are reported promptly to the Public Commission and shared with member states, and by facilitating sharing of investigatory information. It requires criminal background checks, it improves continuity of care, and improves portability for professional counselors.
Okay,
it contains a specific provision for interstate practice via telehealth, ensures understanding that the practice of professional counseling occurs in the state where the client is located at the time, and requires continuing education for all who practice under the compact, as well as improves portability for military spouses.
Okay, thank you very much.
Department of Defense Military families move every 3 years on average. The compact helps military families relocate and begin work without delay. On behalf of the American Counseling Association, I urge you to vote favorably on the compact SB 257.
Thank you very much. Now Patricia Morrissey.
Hi, everybody. Long time no see for a lot of you.
Yeah.
I apologize for not being on video. I'm recovering from COVID, sadly, like a lot of us out there. And I actually was joining today to support a lot of the campaign finance measures. But as someone who was just elected chair of the Loudoun Community Services Board, the relevance of this bill to addressing our workforce shortage in mental health, behavioral health fields, I think this is an incredibly important bill in terms of adding flexibility to our service providers. So I just wanted to speak up as in my capacity as chair of the Loudoun Community Services Board, and also thank Barbara Favola for her previous bill, SB 318, which is also extremely important. I'm a member of American Promise and Money Out Virginia also. Thank you for your time today, guys.
Thanks very much. Are there people that want to speak against the bill in the Zoom room?
If anyone in the Zoom would like to speak opposed to the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at this time, there is no one who would like to speak against the bill.
Are there people in the audience who need to speak to the bill?
Becky Bowers, and near Mr. Chairman, with the Virginia Association of Community Services Boards and the Virginia Counselors Association, and both of the associations support the bill.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Senator
Chair.
McDougal.
You might be, Becky, you might be the perfect person for me to ask this. Tell me what different requirements Virginia has currently for somebody to be able to engage in counseling that are listed out. I guess it's in Article 3, state participation in the compact.
There are different, who was asking that question? I couldn't tell.
Senator McDougal.
Oh, sorry, Senator McDougal, I should know by now. Each state does have different requirements. All of them require a master's degree or more for counseling, plus a number of hours of experience under supervision in an internship and a residency. In our state, we require a residency program of about 3,000 hours prior to being issued a license. And it does vary from state to state.
Mr. Chairman, so I guess tell me if I'm wrong to be concerned under item 3, because it's Article 3A, item 3, licensees would only have to have 60 semester hours master's degree in counseling or 60 semester hours of graduate coursework. So you don't have to actually, under this, if you went to Georgia or Maryland, you would not have to have the master's degree or those 3,000 hours. Is that correct?
It does vary from state to state, and that is one of the issues that has caused some hesitancy among states to participate in the compact. However, I would say that each state then requires a certain number of hours as the minimum floor of preparation for entry into practice. And if they achieve all of those and take the examination that's required and pass, then they would be issued the license in that state, and it would be permitted in Virginia if we move forward in this.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McDougal.
So just make sure I'm clear. So if I lived in Georgia and one of the states Senator Hashmi indicated was also had joined or was looking to join, and I only had 60 hours, they let me take the test online at home and I passed it, I could be doing counseling for people online in Virginia.
If you meet all the requirements in Georgia, I doubt that they would give you the issue a license without a residency. They all have a residency
and I lived in
requirements.
Georgia. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I guess that's my concern is there could be people giving counseling advice that have substantially less as far as practical training than what we require in Virginia, like 3,000 hours less.
There could be some states that, Senator McDougal, there could be some states that have more as well, and that is true.
I don't mind joining them.
Senator Boyce, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just thank the patron for carrying this bill. We have a crisis in mental health. Something is wrong with my, we have a crisis in mental health here in Virginia, and expanding, especially allowing military folks to participate in this. I think it's a really thoughtful and well-needed bill right now, and when the time is appropriate, I'd certainly like to make a motion.
Senator Eben has something, I think, and then the time will be appropriate.
For Ms. Bowers-Lanier, just wanted to ask about the shortage of counselors in Virginia now, where we are with that.
Yeah, Senator Eben and Senator Boyce go both. Yes, there is a shortage of counselors in mental health care across the state. I don't have the exact numbers. However, I can get that for you. The Healthcare Foundation has just completed a study on mental health professionals, and I can get that for you. There are quite a number of people who are in educational programs. I believe with this, when the compact is finally actualized, it will help us all the way around. And so I'll get that information to you. And Senator Boyce, just to illustrate one point that we've had, also Senator McDougall, we have a military wife with whom I've had in many communications who is licensed in other states. She and her husband are here. He's in active duty. And it has taken her 6 months to get a license in Virginia because of the differences in requirements in the different states and then the need to go back and verify. This will then permit the states to accept the qualifications of the various states from which the individual has come. And we think it will help.
And it's true, Ms. Becky, that we have crisis at just about every level of employment and behavioral health care, mental health care.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Are there additional questions, or have we heard from everybody? I guess we have, haven't we? Are there motions on the bill?
Move to report.
Got a motion and a second. Are there additional motions? I'm sorry, this is a bill that will have to be re-referred to finance too, so I assume that that's what the motion includes. A motion to report and re-refer to finance. Okay, and that's the second. Are there other motions? Is there additional discussion? Clerk, open the roll. All in favor, vote aye.
Ayes 13, noes 2.
Okay, your bill reports and it's gone to finance.
Thank you.
We've got a bunch of other bills. I see non-members here. Senator Chase, your bills have gone back for the week. Is that correct? You haven't changed your mind on that? Senator Kiggins, you've been sitting here a long time. And then Senator McPeak, right?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Senator Pike takes that.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I have Senate Bill 211, and there is an amendment, a friendly amendment, that I just wanted to make sure everyone had received. It affected lines 32 and 33.
Okay. I've not seen the amendment.
This council, you guys have a copy of that?
Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Yeah, so it'd be on line 32. Strike the remainder of that line and the rest of the new language on line 33. So it just strikes that whole.
I can explain it real quick.
Strike from where on 32?
After the word him, so the italicized, based on the information provided by the state registrar of vital records pursuant to 24.2-408. So basically that means that instead, I'm sorry, do you want to explain or do you want me? Instead of relying on simply the Office of Vital Records to report who is deceased and who is not, they can still receive information from family members who report a death of a person or family member. So there's other ways that they can receive the information about who is deceased. That's the amendment. It's very much a friendly amendment, but it just removes basically that italicized portion of 32 and 33.
Do I have a motion on the amendment? Okay, is there a second? Second. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, the bill's amended. Let me ask you, is this a bill like one we had last year?
I just want to speak to it, yes. And I want to thank Senator Sproul, who's co-patroning this bill. And this bill is very, very similar, except for that amendment we just spoke about, which is it's a list maintenance bill, so it's election accuracy bill. And it just changes the frequency that the Office of Vital Records reports to the Department of Elections about who is deceased and who is not. Right now, it's required on a monthly basis, but the Department of Elections will tell you that it usually takes about 2 to 3 months for them to get some of this information. So this bill simply moves up that frequency to weekly, which is good. It's a step in the right direction now that we have 45 days of early voting. You know, we need to have as updated lists as possible. Just as a reminder, this bill passed out of the Senate last year, 34-5. It passed out of this committee as well. And then did not get out of the House. But there's no cost to this bill. There's no extra staff required. It eliminates the burden on staff in the Department of Elections, which is always a goal. And I believe there's several people here to speak from Registrar's Office and Vital Records as well.
Well, let me ask you, what the purpose of the bill is. You have more frequent reporting, so
people
you decrease the possibility of dead people voting. Are there instances of dead people voting in Virginia?
So that's not how I consider this bill. I consider it to be more of a list maintenance and accuracy bill. So we're not so much worried about, quote, dead people voting, but I want the most accurate list available when we do go to vote. So it just increases that frequency, again, that the Office of Vital Records reports to the Department of Elections so that we have the most accurate list available to prevent a problem like that from occurring.
Okay, are there additional questions of the patron?
Yeah.
No, Senator Eben. And Senator McClellan's after that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask the patron what the problem is, because particularly I'm curious with the efficiency of elections are generally now in November, or maybe a primary in June or something. But why in January, February, March, April, May are we changing this? I thought Virginia's voter list maintenance program was regarded as a national leader. Is there a problem with if there's no dead people voting? I know I had a friend who had lost both his parents, unfortunately, within the span of a month this fall, and he told me that Board of Elections was pretty efficient in contacting them and telling that their names were being removed from the list.
So they get a large amount of names sometimes, and then it becomes cumbersome, burdensome for them to clear those lists. And like I said, it's monthly now, but it's sometimes, after speaking to the Department of Elections, it takes sometimes 2 and 3 months for them to get that workload accomplished. So getting smaller lists to them with more frequency just ensures that it's a more up-to-date and accurate list.
Just one follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Senator Eben.
So you're going to have a registrar or people from BOE who will testify about the workload?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Eben.
Okay, Senator McClellan.
Yes, that was my question. She maybe had a similar question. As I understand it, the people actually doing the work are from the Department of Vital Records. And so do you have someone here?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I believe we have Seth Austin here from the Department of Vital Records, as well as one of the registrars from Norfolk.
Okay, I had Senators Peake and McDougal, but their names have disappeared. Okay, Senator Sproul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to remember, this same bill we had last year.
It's the same bill we had last year, but it didn't pass.
It passed out of here 30-45. So I don't know why all the members always talking about it. It's the same thing last year in here. It passed out of here last year 30-45. So it's nothing new for this side anyway.
Okay. Are there? You said you have some witnesses. Are there other people that want to speak to this bill? They're in the Zoom room.
If you are in the Zoom and you would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chair, we have 2 speakers.
Okay.
Stephanie Eilis, will you go first, please?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Stephanie Isles. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the City of Norfolk. I actually spoke on this bill last year, and we're speaking in favor again on this bill to help support list maintenance for the registrars in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we do normally receive lists of felons, mentally incapacitated, as well as deceased members. They tend to be more quarterly than monthly. And by increasing the number of times that we would be receiving to the Department of Elections weekly would allow us to receive the information in a more timely fashion so that we can properly maintain our voter list records. Also, one of the things that happens sometimes is a person has passed away and we may not find out about it for a couple of months. And then we're sending a notice to that family when they're possibly starting to get over that person's passing, and this just drums up more issues for them. So we'd like to get that information as soon as possible to pay our condolences to the family and correct our voter list records.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Senator Servell, you have a question to this witness?
I have a question of that witness.
Okay, Senator Servell's got a question. Ms. Isles, if you're still there.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ms. Isles, I appreciate your professional feedback on this, but, you know, I had a friend recently whose parent was very sick, and given the 45-day early voting period that we have now, they were actually able to cast their ballot, but died between the date they completed their ballot and when the election occurred. And I'm just curious as to, if we're going to be doing these updates on a week, and that's a valid vote, by the way. And I'm just curious if we're going to be doing these updates on a weekly basis, might that not create some confusion or problems about in situations like that where somebody is actually voting validly but passes away before the election day?
I will tell you that the Department of Elections typically does hold that when the close of books is. We just actually had a special election here for the 89th House of Delegates that we just had on January 11th. And today we received agents for felon and death records. And some of these were people who did pass or had a felony in December of last year. And we just got that list today because the Department of Elections held that because they knew we did have an election coming. So they typically do hold that, so we would not be removing those people. But we will get notifications sometimes when we send an absentee ballot to a voter, particularly because we now have the permanent absentee list, that they are deceased, and that will come back, and then we will update their records as we receive those. But they have not voted.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servell.
Thank you. So I appreciate that. I guess there's a practice that like maybe in special elections they hold it so there's no confusion, but I don't, without anything in the code, I'm just wondering, I mean, whether or not this might create some confusion in the 140 localities that run elections where maybe a list isn't held, or maybe somebody takes it and a registrar decides to take it and use it, as opposed to in your office where I guess you don't look at it until the election's over?
We actually receive the information directly in what we call a batch hopper from the Department of Elections, so it shows up in our queue for us to process. And the Department of Elections is the one that holds the records. So that could be for any election when we're in that close time voting period, not just for a special election.
Are there other people in the Zoom room that want to speak in favor of this bill? If there aren't, are there people in the Zoom room who want to speak against the bill?
Is there anyone in the Zoom room that would like to speak against the bill? If so, please raise your hand now. At this time, there is no one raising
Are there
their hand.
people in the room that need to speak to this bill? Okay, I've been advised by the
Mr.
chair.
Wait.
I'm sorry, Senator McClellan. I apologize. I had both Senator Eben and McClellan on the machine, and I wasn't sure. I apologize. Yes, ma'am. Senator McClellan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to hear from someone from the Department of Vital Records who would be sending the list that they're okay with doing this weekly instead of monthly, because the fiscal impact statement only speaks to the Department of Health, which perhaps Vital Records is under, but I just want to hear from Vital Records directly.
Senator McClellan, I've been advised by the Senator by the chair of finance, this bill will have to go to finance because it's bound to have
Well,
some fiscal impact.
They can answer it there. Thank you.
So move to report and refer to finance. Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, are there additional motions? Is there further discussion? If not, all in favor of reporting and re-referring to finance, vote aye.
Ayes 12, noes 3.
Okay, Senator McPike's out there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, do you have an additional bill?
That, I just had the one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Pike, you have 222, you only have one bill, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you for the time today to present the bill. This bill is would essentially provide and require all candidates for office. As you know, right now, it's limited to statewide office and members of the General Assembly file electronic systems. This has been a practice now that's been well vetted and worked out. We've been filing these reports for years, and it would now make that tool required for all the local candidates as well. And so it's an increase of transparency and contributions across the Commonwealth. Mr. Chair, I think yourself and several others on the commission, on this committee, were a part of the work group that I think had some favorable discussions on this piece of legislation, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill, I guess, my recollection is we talked about this on the joint committee over the last 12 months, and this was one of the recommendations that I thought we approved, although I think you don't remember any votes, but I thought this was one that everybody was okay with. I think Senator Norman was on there too, and I don't remember him registering an objection, but right now I believe the system is that in certain local governments they can opt into electronic filing, but this would make everybody do it, and I think that we need to do this in the interest of transparency to make this information very accessible to everybody, because we have, a lot of, for example, I have a very small town I represent right now that just is doing a $400 million development project, and even in small towns they do big stuff, and I think the campaign contributions that are flying around are important for people to see.
Okay, Senator McClellan, your name's on the machine. Well, let me ask a question first. I mean, is there language in the bill somewhere or in the statute that says if you don't raise any money, you don't have to report?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Well, report no activity.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. There's a new activity report that a committee can file if they have no activity.
And what all this?
But that would still be electronic. So
this bill says you have to do it, even if you're running for town council in the town of Monterey.
That's correct.
Senator McClellan's got something to say. She's got a question.
Do we know how many paper reports are filed?
Mr. Chair, I'd certainly look to anybody in the audience, or maybe it was run across during the committee this year. I don't have a specific number. I don't know if council or other folks. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we got some data on that during the joint committee meeting, I think.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Chris Piper from the Department of Elections. I did not come prepared with that information, but if it was gathered for the committee, I can pull it up and bring it to the chair's attention. But all paper filing is done at the local level, and it's only for those with a population of 70,000 or less at this point. So the department's already taking this on and has been for a couple of years.
Are there additional questions? Are there people in the Zoom room who want to talk on this bill? People in favor? Okay, Pamela, I'd ask you to limit your comments to 1 minute. First speaker is Pamela Berg. The clock's already ticking.
Thank you. We support this. All reports, regardless of office, should be electronic. Technology has developed over the years, making it easier to file electronic reports. Only those reports accessible on the internet can voters have the information they need to understand the contributions. I'm from the League of Women Voters. We support this measure. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa Sales.
I support SB 222. I'm with the group Money Out, and I would agree with my Senator Scott Zervelt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mindy Mitchell.
Hi, I am also a member of the Money Out Virginia American Promise chapter, and we support this bill as 88% of Virginians favor complete disclosure. We support this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Karen Greenaway.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Greenaway, are you there?
Yes, sorry. My name is Karen Greenaway. I'm from American Promise, Virginia, and we strongly support this bill. However, the bill should be improved by amendment to require enhanced public reporting of the collected electronic data by requiring substantial technology upgrades to the existing Department of Elections reporting system. Thank you.
She's just trying to make your bill more expensive, Senator McPike. Jessica Mott.
Yes, I'm Jessica Mott from the Virginia chapter of American Promise. We support this bill because it strengthens disclosure by facilitating a database which is more comprehensive, searchable, and sortable by the public, and potentially in the future could be cross-checked through algorithms for completeness, accuracy, and compliance.
Thank you very much. Zaina Hutchison.
I just want to echo what's been said. Again, my name is Zaina Hutchison. I'm from the Money Out Virginia chapter of American Promise, and I do support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Are there people in the Zoom world who would like to speak against this bill?
Anyone in the Zoom who would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at their time, there are no hands.
Okay. Are there people in the audience that need to speak to this bill? Okay, are there people on the committee who have more things to ask, or are there motions?
Move to report.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there other motions? Is there further discussion? If not, if you're in favor, vote in favor of reporting this bill, vote aye.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
They don't vote for me anymore anyway. Okay, now we're going back to the docket, and I think Senator Eben, you've got the next bill up, which is SJ5, and I think you have a bill related to that too. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is pretty straightforward. This is the identical wording to the constitutional amendment passed by the Senate last year that repeals the prohibition on same-gender marriage in Virginia to bring us in our Constitution into conformity and accuracy in light of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling of Obergefell versus Hodges in June 2015.
Senate Joint Resolution 5 is identical to the amendment we passed last year. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, this is a second reference constitutional amendment.
Yes.
Are there people who need to speak to this? Are there people in the Zoom room? Okay, there's somebody. There's someone here in the flesh.
Mr. Chairman, Josh Hetzler on behalf of the Family Foundation. We have some concerns about this bill. When you look carefully at the language, there's some at least very legitimate concerns about whether this would actually legalize polygamy, among other forms of marriage. And I want to give you just 3 reasons why we believe that it does. The first is that the amendment does not limit marriage to only 2 people. As Delegate Levine's nearly identical alternative last year, H.J. 539 did, and his only difference was, he said, the 2 parties to the marriage. This one omits 2 parties. The legislators were obviously very intentional in choosing this version with no limits on the number of marriage. The second reason is that without the original amendment, the original language, with that taken away, There is now no definition of marriage either in the Virginia Constitution or the Virginia Code. So, and that leads to the third reason. Because the Virginia Constitution has supremacy over any Virginia statutes that may be in conflict, the directive that state, localities, and its agents shall issue marriage licenses, shall recognize marriages, and treat all marriages equally. When marriage is nowhere defined, it may effectively nullify statutes prohibiting or criminalizing certain kinds of marriage. In the Virginia Code, while marriage is not defined, certain kinds of marriage are said to be not allowed. And whereas there are other places in the code where it says some marriages are void, so they don't exist. So in those places where the code says marriages are not allowed, in these, our concern is that the supremacy of this language in the Constitution saying all marriages shall be treated equal, it would effectively legalize those things. That would include, for example, child marriage, which I know Senator Vogel a couple years ago worked to outlaw child marriages. Bigamous marriages, close to relative marriages. So I would love to be wrong about this, but there are just too many reasons to believe that this actually does open up things to polygamy. I don't know where the members stand on that issue, but I know that there has been no robust discussion about such a dramatic policy change in the Commonwealth. So I hope for that reason you will not support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jeff Caruso at the Virginia Catholic Conference. I think you've heard my testimony for a number of years on this topic, so I won't belabor it, but we do think that what the voters decided in 2006 as a matter of state policy was a good policy decision. We know that that decision is dormant right now because of the Supreme Court decision. We also know that federal laws can change. So we would just ask you to consider what do you believe would be the best state policy for Virginia and to vote accordingly. We believe that the best decision would be to continue to adhere to marriage as the union of a man and a woman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, there are a number of people on the Zoom room who want to speak in favor. I'd like to give those people a shot, and then Senator Eben, you can speak. Pamela Berg, you're first up.
Thank you. My name is Pam Berg. I'm testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters.
I apologize. I want everybody to have a minute apiece. So
okay, we support it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Carol Shaw.
Hi, thank you, Chairman. My name is Carol Shaw, and I'm here this afternoon to speak in support of the bill. My wife, Mary Townley, and I were plaintiffs in the Bostick v. Rainey marriage equality case that was resolved by the Supreme Court. We entered the legal fight for marriage law in 2013, but our personal fight for marriage equality began when our now 24-year-old daughter, Emily, was born. We decided that regardless of Virginia's lack of legal recognition, we were her family and would always present ourselves as both her moms. Names matter. Names like mom and wife make all the difference in the world. That's what we won when we won in the Supreme Court, the simple and profound right to call each other legally family. Any family foundation would surely support every child's right to have two parents legally. I close with a quote from the decision by Judge Arenda Wright Allen in our case. We have arrived upon another moment in our history when we the people becomes more inclusive and our freedom more perfect. The men, women, and children too, whose voices join in noble harmony with the plaintiffs today, ask for fairness and fairness only. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. V. Lamnick.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is V. Lamnick. I'm the Executive Director of Equality Virginia, and we strongly support Senator Eben's bill. Over 200,000 LGBTQ Virginians currently live in the Commonwealth, and of that, about a quarter of them are actually raising children. Of both of these groups, many of them are married or are interested in getting married, but unfortunately we live in a state where the Constitution is not reflective of that right to marry. This issue was decided in 2015 by the Supreme Court, and just this summer, Gallup released polling that showed that over 70% of Americans support marriage equality. It is time for us to remove the current anti-marriage amendment and to affirm marriage equality here in our Commonwealth, and I ask you to support the senator's bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Lisa Sales.
Hi, Senators. Thank you. Are we talking about, it sounds like the Family Foundation is being discriminatory. And are we treating marriages equally, or are we treating people equally? If the concern is polygamy, then let's ban polygamy. But we are for equality and treating people equally. Thank you. I support the bill.
Okay, thank you. Patricia Marseglia. Ms.
Patricia.
Marseglia, are you out there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. I was raised in Arlington County and by my mom and dad. I was very fortunate. And it says here, God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And then it goes on to say, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And I stand on the word of God, and I cast down the Supreme Court's decision that allows murder in the womb, and it is no law over America.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Zana Hutchison.
Yes, I just want to echo the previous scholars who support this bill. I do believe in marriage equality, and it's about time Virginia does something about this. So yes, I do support this bill.
Okay, are there people in the Zoom room besides those that have already spoken who want to oppose this bill?
At this time, if anyone in the Zoom would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chairman, we have a couple speakers.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, they put their hand down, so never mind. Apologies.
Okay. Senator Eben, you wanted to...
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a few of the witnesses here. They're distributing information that says the legislators very intentionally chose the version with no limits on the number of persons in a marriage. And that's just a lie, outright lie, and I take offense at that. And I take offense at the Family Foundation's characterization that this would allow polygamy. I don't know, I haven't been to law school, but I do know there's a federal Edmunds Anti-Polygamy Act of 1882. I further know that Virginia Code Section 18.2-362 talks about persons marrying when their spouse is alive and the penalty for people engaging in multiple marriages. That's a Class 4 felony in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this has nothing to do with polygamy. What this has to do is equality. And just as the laws and customs have evolved since the 1600s, they've evolved since 2006. The voters made a mistake. I think the majority of the voters feel that way. And it's time to move Virginia forward and have our Constitution reflect the laws of the 21st century. Thank you.
Okay, are there additional questions from the committee? Senator Boysko.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the patron for carrying this bill. As a parent of a LGBT daughter, I want to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle, and I want to have her have the opportunity for the rest of her life. And I thank you for taking this step, and I know it's been a long one, and I celebrate it with you today.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions or motions on the bill? As Senate Joint Resolution 5. Are there other motions? Is there further discussion? If not, open the roll. All in favor of reporting Senate Joint Resolution 5, vote yes. Okay.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
The Senate Joint Resolution 5 is reported. Senate Bill 557 is simply the bill that puts it on the ballot. It's my understanding that bill will have to be re-referred to Finance if it's reported, but it's simple as it can be. It just puts the bill, it's the budget bill, or it's the ballot bill.
Yeah, it restates the question for the ballot, sir. That's all it does. It's Senate Joint Resolution. I'm sorry, that was Senate Bill 557.
Right. Okay, there's a motion to report and re-refer. Are there further motions? Is there further discussion? If not, please open the roll. Vote yes to report and re-refer. Okay, thank you.
John, your vote didn't register. Oh, it did.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Thank you, Senator Evans.
I have
Senator
another
Oben?
bill. Do you want to take that now, or do you want to wait?
Sure, well, what's your other bill?
It has to do with the current requirement for witness signature on the absentee ballot return envelope.
Okay, it's 273, is that correct?
Yes, sir, SB 273.
Okay.
There was a study from the Department of Elections in 2021 on alternatives to the witness signature requirement on absentee ballots. And I have a substitute, actually, which I'd like to move. I think council has that, an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Do we have an amendment in the nature of a substitute?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Once we get copies of that, we will, and that's electronically provided, is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is it on the machine? Okay, it's on the machine now. Have you seen it? Okay, can I have a motion? It's on the machine. We don't have physical copies. Do we have it electronically then? Has everybody seen it?
Do you want me to explain it, sir? Or?
Well, let's get it properly before us. Is there a motion for the substitute?
So move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now explain the substitute now that it's properly before us.
Sure. The difference between the substitute and the original bill is this deals with the fact that right now you have to have a witness sign your absentee ballot return form. So there are two differences now. This says instead of giving your driver's license number as an alternative, you would only be able to give the last 4 digits of your social security number and the voter's date of birth as an alternative to the signature of the witness. It further makes provisions for the 400 Virginia voters who don't have social security numbers that they would be provided with unique identifier from the state board, that they would promulgate regulations for unique identifier to any qualified voter who lacks a social security number. And they could use that in place of the social security number for the purpose of voting absentee. That's the difference, is that it takes out the driver's license as an alternative, because the work group from the State Board of Elections had proposed this solution without the other, and this would mirror a Republican-introduced bill in the House.
Are there amendments or are there questions from the committee?
Okay.
Are there people in the Zoom room?
Can I further explain the bill?
Sure.
Virginia is one of just 8 states that requires a witness signature when you return an absentee ballot, making the Commonwealth an outlier from the common safe election practice. And in my locality, one of my localities, 62 ballots were not counted this past election because of the lack of a witness signature. This provides an alternative that's secure and that people can have some confidence in. And as I said, it was the result of a Department of Elections work group. Currently, you have to sign here or have an X if for the witness, and I almost think the witness signature is not something that's easy to verify anyway, because you could just scribble anything and in the witness signature and it's good. This at least proves that the person who's returning it, if they don't have a witness or want to just do it themselves without sharing their ballot with other people, provide that information that can be verified. Other states like Minnesota currently have a similar policy in place that allows voters to provide either a state ID number or the last 4 of their social as a means of verifying return ballots, and we go further to include the birthday, so information that the Department of Elections would have on file.
Okay, are there questions of Senator Eben?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Eben, if I can lead you to line 332 on the substitute, if you have it in front of you.
Yes.
It talks about verification of voter identity. It strikes out signature of witness, verification of voter identity. So just so I understand, because I'm trying to just read the substitute, that verification, that voter identity is being conducted by the registrar's office, is that correct? And then if it is, then they're going to come up with a unique identifier in order to verify the voter's identity. So it's like a QR code or something?
The unique identifier is only for those 400 Virginia voters who don't have Social Security numbers. If you read further down to line 342, they can either include their a witness signature as today, or they can include their date of birth and the last 4 digits of their Social Security number. And only in the case of people who don't have a Social Security number, and I don't know why 400 people don't, but they don't on file, they would have the unique identifier. Only those folks.
So in the whole Commonwealth, there's only 400 plus people that don't have a Social Security
Who are
number?
registered to vote.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. Are there additional questions for Senator Eben? Are there people in the Zoom room who would like to speak to this bill? Mary McDaniel wants to speak in favor of this bill.
Yes, sir. I work as an officer of election, and I've done that since 2016. I've participated as a precinct chief and also done work with early voting, and I'm in favor of this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Bethany Hadlick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Beth Laddick on behalf of Unite America and the Voters First Project. We support SB 273 and thank Senator Eben for carrying this bill. We believe this bill will increase election security while not being overburdensome on voters and election administrators. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vic Nichols. Vic Nichols, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am not in favor of this bill for several reasons. Number one, Social Security numbers easily stolen. In 2013, Anthem had millions of birthdays and Social Security numbers stolen. That's not the only time that it's been stolen. The government has also had my security clearance information stolen. So no, if you sit there and look, anybody can sit there and grab the Social Security numbers and birthdays. They're very easy to fake. One of the other issues is if you have a signature and you have somebody faking they're sitting there taking a lot of people's ballots, maybe, say out of a nursing home, and you find one person that's signing all of these ones as a witness, that's also questionable. That's one of the ways that you can sit there and wonder who exactly is doing this. So no, Social Security number and birthday, any of those things are definitely not a secure way of saying that this is actually someone else. And in my case, I vote absentee because I am handicapped, and I would like to have a secure way to know that my information is not going to be stolen as it already has and my vote stolen.
Okay, thank you.
One of the ways that that's done is having another person sign on it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Marseglia.
Unmute. Thank you for allowing me to talk here. I don't support this idea at all. I think it's a great idea to have somebody witness your signature.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's it?
That's well said.
Okay, thank you. Are there other people in the Zoom room who haven't already spoken who would like to speak in opposition?
If there's anyone in the Zoom room that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand now.
Other than the people that have already spoken?
Mr. Chair, I believe there are no more speakers.
Okay, are there people in this room who would like to speak? Okay, the bill's before the committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Peake, I apologize, your name was up there.
I just
apologize.
came in just now. Thank you. Question to the patron, Mr. Chairman. So if they put the Social Security number or the last 4, is the registrar, and I'm sorry because I didn't have the substitute, directed to check the Social Security number?
Online. It's, maybe council can help me. I just got the substitute today, but it says on verification of voter identity, it says otherwise verified on line 338. It doesn't, I don't know if it directs, council might be able to tell me if it directs anyone to verify in particular.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben, I'm not aware on this draft if there's anything that says in particular to check the social security number or unique identifier given on the address, but there are provisions for the registrar to check the envelope and the contents of it to make sure it's complete. So if the absence of that number is a material omission according to the state board, then that
Yeah, it would be a material omission not to include it, but it would be verifiable if there was any doubt. Right now, there's no requirement for the registrar to check the witness signature or to know who the witness was or to record that, to my knowledge.
Senator Peake, are you?
Mr. Chairman, so no, or counsel or patron, so the point being.
The question he answered was, there's nothing that says specifically, this is what you have to do your job, but there is language that says you've got to verify the contents. You've got to verify the.
But my point being, what difference does, if they got to verify the contents, does it matter if the social security number that's put down is actually accurate? So let's say the social security number does not match the name of the person. Is there any provision in this substitute that addresses that?
It says on line 398, including the required information for verification of the voter's identity. I know that it's a material omission right now. It used to be till we passed, if you left off your middle name and that wasn't verified, they would throw that out. So they could throw it out, but it's not explicit. If you want to amend that, I'd consider that friendly.
Mr. Chair, I don't have the substitute to go through it.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
So I guess I'm not sure I fully followed the discussion, but let me just try it this way. So is the failure to provide the Social Security number either under current law or under Senator Evans' bill a material omission?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McClellan. So under current law, this type of thing doesn't exist, so it's not a material omission under current board regulations. But that doesn't mean they couldn't make it a material omission.
Mr. Chair, follow
Would
up.
the bill need to be amended to make that a material omission?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so. I think the state board has the authority right now to make that a material omission as they do other material omissions.
Okay,
But
Senator McClellan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess my concern would be if we leave it to the board to determine whether it's a material omission, will it also be up to them whether there's an opportunity to cure? Or under existing law, would there be an opportunity to cure for any new material omissions that get added?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McClellan, under current law, there is a cure process for absentee ballots, and any deficiency in those absentee ballots gets the cure process, so this would fall under that. So yes, they would be able to cure.
Thank you. So I guess.
Senator McClellan.
So to Senator Peake's line of questioning, if the Board of Elections promulgates regulations that make not having a Social Security number or having one that doesn't match a material omission, then I think it's covered. Like, that ballot won't count unless it's cured. So I'm not sure what the concern is he's raising.
Okay, are there additional questions? Senator McDougal.
Mr. Chairman, why wouldn't we just say why wouldn't we just put in the amendment, or maybe I move that we amend the bill to make it a material omission not to include the Social Security number or driver's license number?
Not driver's license, that's not in the substitute. It's birth date and last four of the social or a witness signature. That it's an either or. It would be a material omission not to include it. Is that, counsel, does that make sense to you?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yeah, I can come up with some language. I have to find out where to put it. were to put the sentence that says it shall be a material omission, not to provide an accurate social security
You
number.
want this bill to go
Yeah,
by
let's
for a
take this
week?
by for the week, and I can run it by Senator McDougal and
Okay.
Peak and see if that meets with their approval.
Senator Obenchain was going to come by to get a bill. Is he not here yet? Okay. Jill, I think you've got the next bill on the docket. Senate Bill 610.
Oh, he is here. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, Senator Obenchain preempted Senator Vogel, I guess.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Heaven forbid. And Senate Bill 127, which is similar to, or maybe identical to Senator Peak's 168. Is Senator Peak still here? Well, Senator Peak, your bill 168 is identical to his bill? Roll. Okay, do I have a motion? Senator Peak will be listed as chief co-patron. Okay, all in favor of that, I'll have to vote aye on the electronic voting machine.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay, the bills are rolled in, and Senator Open Peak. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Senator Peak and I will look forward to our victory lap at the end of the General Assembly session after this passes both chambers and is signed by the governor. But this is a simple little bill that adopts a common sense approach to voting. It restores what we did in 2012, restores the identification requirement that we passed. As you will remember, the genesis of the voter ID movement, which, gosh, I think I introduced first voter ID bill in 2004, my first session here. And its genesis was the 2000 presidential election and the Carter-Baker Commission, which the result of which was Jimmy Carter and James Baker recommending that states adopt voter identification requirements in order to promote voter confidence in the integrity of our election system. Last year, some of my friends on the other side of the aisle, nationally, came around of late on this. Stacey Abrams reported that that the notion that Democrats are opposed to voter identification is just part of the Republican fallacy, that she and Democrats have supported it, and it's always been a part of our history and should be, that voters should have to be able to prove who they say they are. Over the course of this past year, of course, voters or Americans have been asked to show proof of vaccination even in order to be able to work. So this is simply requiring restoring the requirement of showing an identification. We went through an elaborate process to make sure that there was no barrier to anybody obtaining an identification through the system that we put together. This requirement just goes back to the way that it was, and there was litigation a few years ago in which those challenging our photo identification requirement, our voter identification requirement, spent better part of a year trying to find somebody in Virginia who was not allowed to vote as a consequence of this voter identification requirement. Yet when it went to court and was considered, it couldn't find a single person in the Commonwealth of Virginia for whom this was an insurmountable barrier. This is a common sense measure. We've had a lot of debate over the integrity of elections. I'm not trying to go back and rewrite history. I'm not trying to go back and suggest that there's epidemic fraud, but to the extent that there are people out there who believe that there are big gaping holes in our system, this just is a common sense way to address those concerns. The most recent polls show that about 60%, 65%, actually 70% of Americans support voter ID. And the support is not just Republicans. It's Republicans, Democrats, independents, blacks, whites. It is something that we can link arms and put back in the Code of Virginia. And I would ask you and the members of the committee to do just that.
Okay, before we, I just saw a text from Senator Chase, and she wants her Senate Bill 118 to be rolled into this, and she wants to be a chief co-patron.
I just soon let Senator Chase stand on her own.
It's the same bill. We're just rolling it in together.
Oh. We've got a motion, but we don't have a second. So Senator Chase, we'll just take it up next week. That's okay. Okay. Okay, I think the committee understands the issues. This just puts us back where we were a few years ago. Are there questions for Senator Obenshain or Senator Peake? Senator Peake, I apologize. Do you have things you want to?
If I may, and not to be too duplicative, but with the John Lewis voting rights bill, it would do away with photo ID, and they've been talking about it nationwide. Everybody's been paying attention to it, and I just wanted again to cite what Senator Obenshain said. The national polling, Republican, Democrat, everyone, I think is upwards of 70% approve of some type of photo ID when you vote. And I think there'd been, when it first passed, they made it available. We'll take anybody that needs it to go get a photo ID. And I think one person had availed themselves of the free transportation to get a photo ID. It is not burdensome. It is not stopping anyone from voting. It restores integrity. Because as we've seen, if someone doesn't like the way the vote turns out, they can attack the integrity and say, oh, nobody had to prove who they were. This eliminates that avenue of somebody attacking the integrity of the election.
Okay, Senator McClellan, your name is on my machine. Is that okay? Are there other people who would like to ask questions of Senator Peake or Senator Obenshain? If not, are there people in the Zoom room who would like to speak in favor of this bill?
If you're in the Zoom and you would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chair, there are multiple speakers.
Okay, you have 1 minute each.
Mary McDaniel, you will speak first.
Ms. McDaniel? Is Mary McDaniel there?
We have a question about the issuance of the cards for folks who don't have another form of ID. Would that be done by the registrars or would that be done by the Division of Motor Vehicles?
We're not really in a position where we're answering questions. We're asking you if you're for or you're against the bill.
I'm sorry. I thought we were doing questions. I don't have an opinion at this point.
Okay. Vic Nichols.
Thank you. Have to show an ID to buy beer, have to show one to drive, have to show one to get health care. You have to show one when you get a job. There are tons of different things that you're required to show a photo ID for. There's no excuse why voting should be any different. In other countries even, they don't have a clue why everybody in America thinks that you shouldn't have to show an ID for only that. This at least takes care of some of the problems, again, with the constant, as it's been for years, that people are complaining about election integrity. Again, this is the way to take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Pamela Berg.
Yes, thank you. My name is Pamela Berg. I'm testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters, and we oppose SB 127. These bills purport, to prevent or hinder fraudulent impersonation of voters. It is already a felony to impersonate a voter, and it happens so rarely as to be insignificant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other people in opposition who have not already spoken who are in the Zoom room?
If you are in the Zoom and you would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, Mr. Ned Jones would like to speak.
Okay, Mr. Jones, please.
Yes, I support this bill. All recent polling shows that 80% of our citizens, regardless of party affiliation, are in favor of photo ID to vote, and I strongly support this measure.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler, are you out there? You're listed in the opposition column, and I can't imagine.
You are absolutely correct, Senator Deed. I would never be in opposition to this bill. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I apologize for my voice. I've been somewhat under the weather. I'd like to quote Andrew Young, who was the first black mayor of Atlanta when the Georgia legislators passed the first photo ID law. And at the time, Mayor Young said, quote, "I would like to thank the legislators of Georgia for giving every citizen of Georgia a photo ID because you cannot participate in mainstream America without one," close quote. I could not agree with the mayor more strongly. The Department of Elections went through a lot of trouble and activity to create an ability for anyone to come into a registrar's office and get a free photo ID. That was the genesis of this being such a good bill. All the photo IDs are free, and I encourage you to pass this bill because it certainly will help us clean up a lot of the questions surrounding identity for voting. Thank you very much, Senators Peake and Obuchain, for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you very much, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you, sir.
Zana Hutchison. Ms. Hutchison, are you out there?
Yes, sorry, I was just being moved in here. Yes, I actually concur with the League of Women Voters, and I vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there people in the audience who would like to speak on this bill? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon. I'm Alicia Andrews. I am the Deputy Secretary for the Secretary of Administration, and I'd like to say that we support this bill completely. We want to make sure that every person in the Commonwealth has confidence when they go and place their vote. And to ensure that, we would like to make sure that they have the photo ID to make sure that they feel that way. When a voter is listed, have already voted, they're offered a provisional ballot. Then they're required to then follow up on that, which causes additional constraints to our voters. We want to make sure the process isn't cumbersome and harder. We want to make sure that it's easier for people to vote, not harder. So thank you for your time, and we strongly encourage you to vote in favor.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the administration.
Senator Surville has a question.
Thank you. I contacted the DMV about 8 years ago or 10 years ago when I first debated this, and they told me that about 117,000 duplicate license requests are filed every year, presumably because people lose their licenses. Does it concern the administration at all that people might not be able to vote simply because they happen to lose their license when it was time for them to cast a vote?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Surville, that's an excellent question, and it's something that I'll take up with the administration because at this time I don't have an answer for you, but I will definitely take that up for you.
Okay.
And get
One
back
more
to you.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Surville.
I have a monastery in my district that has about 30 cloistered nuns in it. They don't wear shoes because they don't leave. I'm pretty sure they don't have ID because they don't really drive or really do much of anything other than live in the monastery and raise chickens and pray. And I was just curious whether the administration had concern about their ability to vote because they don't have any kind of ID because that's just, they don't have one. That's not how they live.
It's my bill, and I will tell you that those nuns who never leave the monastery don't have to have an ID because even under this, they can cast absentee ballots without having to comply with an identification requirement. So I'm very concerned about your nuns' ability to vote as well.
Okay.
Okay, Are you through with your question, Senator Servo?
I could ask a lot more, but I'll refrain.
Oh, okay, well, my understanding is there was a misunderstanding, and I would like to have a motion to roll Senate Bill 118 into these bills, into Senator
moved.
bill, and make Senator Chase and Chief co-patron. But motion and a second, all in favor are going to vote aye on the electronic voting machine. This is rolling, that's all.
Ayes
Okay.
15, no zero.
Now the united bills are before you, and Senator Obenshain, you have the last word.
I hope you'll vote for this bill.
Okay, that's the last word.
You don't have to have an identification to do it.
Substitute motion,
Got a motion to report, got a substitute motion.
which is to PBI.
Okay, the substitute motion takes precedence. I guess there aren't any other motions. There's no more discussion. Vote green on the electronic voting machine if you vote, you want the PBI of the bill.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
I think you want to correct Senator McDougal there before.
Maybe Senator Hackworth as well.
You can strike the roll and we get it right, that's fine. Yeah.
I have fewer friends on the committee
Ayes
than I
9,
thought I
noes
had.
6.
Okay, thank you, Senator Obenshain.
No, I thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
members of the committee.
Now we have back to Senator Vogel's bill.
Mr. Chairman,
You've got a bill that's going to come up here before it's long.
there Amanda Chase, does she have a bill out there?
Amanda Chase's bills go about it next week.
Oh, okay.
We've already.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I had a bill, and I want to be really clear about this so that there is no confusion about two bills that I had on the docket. One was 610, and that was a bill that had the bill that I'm about to present it was a part of that bill, along with a bill that was like Senator Obenshain's and Senator Chase's. I struck that bill. That bill is gone, and I did so out of deference to the part of this bill that I care a lot about, that I would like this body to pass, and because I knew there would be so much controversy about the other part of the bill, this bill that's before you, which is Senate Bill 371, is a bill that passed this body in 2019, 35-2.
Let me. So
Yes, sir.
Senate Bill 610 is
Is stricken. I asked it, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that.
but we have a
I'd
motion
sent
to-
that to the committee before this morning and asked that if you guys would please strike 610.
So we got a motion and a second to strike the bill. That's a recorded vote, is that correct? Okay, all in favor of striking, we'll have to vote green on the electronic voting machine. Okay, that bill is stricken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I saved you a lot.
Okay, Senate Bill
Treacherous and miserable debate on that bill, so that's gone.
371.
And so what's in front of you is a bill that very similar to one you heard in 2019, almost actually identical except for one change. This bill passed the Senate 35-2, and this is a bill that does something that I think everybody agrees is right, and that is it makes the Department of Elections an independent agency. The Department of Elections should be. Everybody agreed back then that it should be, and it should function that way. And what this does is it's pretty simple. It just says that the board will appoint the commissioner. The board itself will appoint the commissioner. And it does one thing that I thought would make it more palatable to anybody that had any concerns about how this might impact either Republicans when there's a Republican administration or Democrats when there's a Democrat administration. And that is, it puts 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And I know there's been some dispute over what should the number be. Should it be an even number or should it not? But I think that if we're concerned about fairness and we're concerned about, okay, well, now it's a Republican administration, that wouldn't be fair for there to be a majority when there's a Republican governor. So I want to be really clear that this is about fairness and really clear that it's about, even though right now the governor is a Republican, it is, in my view, really important that for the optics and for the confidence of everybody, whether you're an elected office holder or you're not, or you're the public, this is something where there should be independence, and that the guidance that's provided ought to come from an independent agency. And I think, I don't actually know of a single person that genuinely disagrees with the spirit and the intent of this. There may have been people that disagreed with maybe the number, and I think that was an issue once before. But fundamentally, that's what this does. It's really straightforward. It just says that there will be 4 members of the Board of Elections from each of the 2 parties, and then they, with a supermajority, will select their own commissioner, and that person then will also require a supermajority to fire that person. And the goal is to create some opportunity for, I guess what I'm looking for is for some agreement and some coordination among that group of people, and some work across the aisle to agree on things that are important to all Virginians when it comes to elections. So there you have it.
So the distinction, I guess, between this and the
Previous one was the number that was the
The
number.
redistricting commission had an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, and they couldn't agree on anything.
I know.
The distinction here is you've got, they have to elect a chair by a supermajority.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Sproul.
2 questions, Mr. Chairman. The first one, if it's 4-4, if they can't agree on the chairmanship, what do you do?
Actually, they're actually choosing a commissioner, so a head of the agency, and not a chairman of the board. So to his point, it would still be 4 and 4. But if you can't agree on something, much like this committee, if you have a tie and something fails, that in itself is a vote. If you don't have a majority to agree on something, and you don't have a bipartisan agreement on something, then that in its own right is a failure. So I think that when you have 4-4, and I supported it when I carried it the first time. It was a 5. What was it before? 3-2, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was 3-2, and we had the same argument before. And I said, you know what? You're right. The Federal Election Commission, it's always a 3-3. It creates all kinds of issues. And that was the bill that we introduced before, 3-2. But we had the same argument. But in the end, I think that it gives people more confidence, and you don't get this whiplash every time there's a change in the administration. Suddenly now, Republicans their views carry the day, or Democrats carry the day.
Senator Sproul.
Your lawyers love to talk. Second question, Mr. Chairman. Then how about now at the local level, register? So right now, we had 2 Democrats and 1 Republicans. So now we got a Republican governor. It's going to be 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat. So how would you change that?
So, Mr. Chair, that would not have any impact on that at all. The goal would be that your board, the State Board of Elections, this balance, the goal would be to create a little less of a partisan balance here.
We're talking about the local level.
Right, but at the local level, it wouldn't change that at all.
It'd be the same. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, there'd be no change.
Senator McClellan.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a couple of questions. Are there any other independent agencies or departments that have an equal number of commissioners or members or board members?
I can tell you, I could give you the list, and I wish I had it in front of me. Every state does it differently.
No, I'm sorry, in Virginia.
Right. I don't know about if there are any that are equal in Virginia. Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I'm not aware of if there are any.
I can tell you that, and I've looked at this, and I've had a lot of vigorous debates with my colleagues, some in the legislature and some who are election lawyers who deal with this in other states. And every state does it differently. There are a number of states that have an even balance for the reasons that I've just suggested here. And they have different ways of forcing compromise. And in some cases, the solution is what I just said, which is it's going to force a compromise. Otherwise, you don't get the vote.
But Senator Vogel, you're not aware of other agencies within the state of Virginia?
I'm not. No, I didn't do that research. I don't know if there are any that are.
Yeah, follow-up question. So what happens, and we've seen this happen a handful of times. What happens if you have a potential candidate who is deemed to have not met the qualifications for the ballot? Petition signatures thrown out, they missed the deadline, they filed at the wrong place, and there's a tie 4-4 at the commission. What happens with that candidate?
So it would, to your point, it would fail. And here's what I would suggest to this committee. I brought it this way in hopes of a spirit of compromise, to the extent anybody had a concern, that this committee would focus on the independents and would support the bill. I will tell you honestly, I supported the bill the first time. The way I carried the bill was a not even balance. I am fine with that, and would be happy if somebody wanted to amend the bill. Yeah. I care more about the independence of the agency, and I think there are other people here who would speak to that and could probably speak more with a lot more experience to how this has worked in the past and could give you more insight. But I would tell you that I share your concern about that, and I would consider any amendment in that regard to satisfy those concerns, a friendly amendment. I think that it's more important that the board be functional. It's more important that the board look for a competent, qualified election professional to serve as the commissioner of the board. It's a very important position. And it's super important that in the capacity in which that person serves, along with that board, that they are in a position to provide clarity and advice to our registrars around the Commonwealth, and that people have a lot of confidence in the independence. And so I think for all those reasons, I would welcome any change that you might make that would lead you to support an independent department.
Senator McClellan, do you still have questions?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, okay. Mr. Chair, I think we need that because a big difference between the redistricting commission and this bill, as I read it, is if the redistricting commission deadlocks, there's a backstop, the Supreme Court. I don't see a backstop if this board or department or whatever, they're still a board to me.
Right.
If they deadlock. So I think we do need to either have, an odd number so there's a clear majority or an umpire. So I would move that we change this to have an odd number. I'm indifferent as to what that number is.
Well, it's also going to affect enactment clause 3, which makes appointments till you get to the
we could do 4-3.
Okay. But I do have another.
Senator McClellan.
Once we act on this motion, I have another question, another concern. But so you want to do 4-3? I would make that motion.
Second question on the motion, Mr. Chairman.
You've got a question
on the motion, the 4-3 motion.
Yes.
So, how do you determine who gets the 4, who gets the 3?
So the way that's determined, and the way it was in the bill that we originally introduced that passed 35-2, was it's determined based on the party with the most recent highest vote. So in this case, it would be whoever is the governor, that person's party gets 4.
I got it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it is now.
I got it. I'm good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't change that. Exactly.
Got a motion to go 4-3. Do we need to know precisely how that language is going to fit into this bill, or we just doing it in concept?
So, Mr. Chair, I guess I could make the suggestion that you change it 4-3, and then Brooks could then go back. It would make a change to how they're added, because right now it's staggered one year after another, so it would just reduce that by one person.
Okay, we're doing it in concept, I guess, until we get more precise language. All in favor of the amendment in concept, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've gone 4-3. Okay.
All right, I have a second concern.
Senator McClellan.
So what happens under this bill if the governor does not make appointments of the opposite party in a timely manner?
Mr. Chair, it was never my impression that where the bill or where the language calls for each party to submit names for the governor to to appoint, that a governor would have the discretion to appoint some and not others. So that would obviously fundamentally undermine the whole idea of, one, the independence of the Board of Elections and the independence of the commissioner, because obviously it takes a functioning board to work. So let me ask you, Brooks, there's nothing in the current language of the statute that sets a deadline or requires it, is there?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Vogel, no, currently there isn't anything that would stop that type of behavior. So, and this wouldn't change that at all.
So, Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan.
Would your thoughts be on as a concept if a governor fails to appoint someone, then the person who held that seat holds it until there is a replacement, which I believe is how some of the commissions that we serve on that the governor appoints works. And I think that would
solve the problem.
Okay. Well, I would
Okay,
move that.
so we've got another amendment in concept.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got.
Thank you for that.
To basically leave the people on there until they are replaced, in concept. Understand, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've amended the bill. Senator McClellan, are you through? Okay, the next person on the list is Senator Reeves.
She answered my question.
Okay, and Senator Boysko's disappeared as well. Senator Eben, you're still on the.
No, with the amendments, I don't want to.
Okay, Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, thank the patron for the bill. I think it's a good bill. I like the bill. I have one question about it, though, and this might be for council, and it could be a dumb question, but I just want to clarify because I think it could be important. On line 70, it talks about after the initial staggering of terms, and then it goes on to say that the terms begin on February 1st in the year of the appointment. And then if we go down to line 107, it says that the Provisions Act shall become effective on January 1st. So my concern is, on January 1st, this becomes effective, but we aren't able to have a board appointment start till February 1st, so we have nothing between January and February. And given the fact when elections take place, I'm a little concerned we have that month where we have no board. Am I reading this right? I'm seeing a head nod from council.
Brooks. Do we need another enactment clause to cover that 1 month?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that might be advisable, just to cover that month and make sure
So in concept, do we want to
allow the current board members to serve
for that 1 month?
For that 1 month until their replacements are appointed on.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, if I could, I would either do that or in concept, basically say since we're talking about on line 70 giving basically some leeway for the initial appointments, basically say initial appointments will start January 1st when the act becomes effective, following appointments on February 1st. Would that work in concept?
We could do that as well, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bill, yeah.
Assuming that there are appointments. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you want me to make a motion? I mean, I'm frankly happy with either way we do it,
Okay,
as long as we have something.
Whichever way makes you happy. I think I was one of the two. And
You were.
A couple of years ago. So I'm going to be against the bill anyway.
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman was one of the two, then 35-2.
And the motion is, we have to re-refer this to finance if it passes.
Mr. Chairman, does the patron have a preference on which way we do that? I mean, it's not a big deal.
No, I don't have a preference.
Okay, I would do the way where we basically, why don't we say the current board stays until the new board comes.
That's simpler, I think.
And I'll move that in concept. That amendment.
Okay, we've got another in concept amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've conceptually amended this bill 3 times.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you love this bill anyway, so thank you, Mr.
I think
Chair.
Senator Howell was the other no vote.
She was the other no.
Okay, so you've helped me with my proxy. Okay, are there those in the Zoom room who want to speak to this bill? Well, wait. I'm sorry. Are there additional questions from?
Mr. Chairman, I'm moving concept.
No. Are there people in the Zoom room? Okay. People in the Zoom room who'd like to speak in favor of this bill?
If you are in the Zoom and you would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chair, we have one individual who would like to speak in favor.
Okay, you have the floor. Ms. Robbins, Allison Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar in the County of Wise, and I'm with the Voter Registrars Association. We'd like to thank Senator Vogel for continuing to work on this. This has long been a priority of our association, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there people in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to this bill?
If you're in the Zoom and you would like to speak in opposition of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at their time, there are no hands raised.
Okay, are there people in the, yes, ma'am, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Barbara Tabb. I'm the president of the Electoral Board Association here in Virginia. We have worked to get this bill for many, many years. We see and work very closely with the department and with our registrars as well. And we think this bill really should be something that we want to strive to. The idea of a commissioner who is independently appointed and does not have a length or a term in default, we think would really help the professionalism here in the state. Not that Commissioner Piper and his team haven't done a great job, but over the long term, we would really like to see this new method of selecting our commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Are there others?
Mr. Chairman, Chris Piper. I've spoken to the administration. I just wanted to voice my support for the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Committee, again, Alicia Andrews, the Deputy Secretary of Administration, we very much support this. The biggest reason why we support this is because we want to make sure that the Commissioner of Elections is brought on by a bipartisan process and not something that the governor would appoint.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Well, the bill is before the committee. If there's a motion to report, it's a motion to report and re-refer to finance.
Move to report and refer.
Concept. In concept.
Second.
Okay, you second in concept? Yes. Are there additional motions or is there discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to thank the committee and say that this has been tried year after year, and people quibbled over the numbers on the board more than I think they quibbled over the concept. And so I really appreciate it and hope that I do not fail again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of reporting in concept and re-referring to finance, vote yes on the electronic voting machine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Vogel.
Question, Mr. Chairman. A question to you.
Senator Sproul.
I noticed that bills are coming forth a lot of times. They keep saying to send to finance, and when I hear bills to send to finance, that means they're gonna kill it. That's why you're doing these bills.
Well, that's not why. That's not necessarily so. That just means the bill has a cost or it has a potential cost, and it has to be considered when you're drafting the budget. Senator
But Mr. Chairman, that's a tradition from another body that Senator Sproul and I have PTSD from.
Or Senator Sproul, Mr. Chair, they could kill it.
No, that's from the Democrats on this side to kill a lot of bills, send to finance.
You're past my bedtime, Senator Sproul.
I apologize.
It's your bill. If you want Senate Bill 39 to come up, and you want anybody to fairly consider it, you need to get out here. Get it. This doesn't have a finance referral.
I'm pretty sure it does. Mr. Chairman, members, Senate Bill 39. This bill simply adds party affiliation to the ballot for constitutional officers. Candidates running for these offices many times seek their party nomination. They spend a lot of money to be on the party nomination, whether they be a Republican or Democrat. But then that designation is not placed on the ballot. Candidates who do not seek a nomination will simply be added as an independent. With the absentees and early voting, numbers at this time is high. People voting do not have the access to the sample ballot to knowing who is supported by this party. This legislation passed the legislature in the past where it was not supported by the governor at that time. So I'm saying to you is that why in the world are we going to have someone to run for a constitutional office, spend all that money to get a nominee, whether Republican or Democrat, all that money to get nomination, and then they are scared to say, I'm a Republican or Democrat in November. I'm getting a lot of flack, especially from the Democrats. And I'm saying, well, don't run as a Democrat. Just run as an independent. So I'm saying either get rid of that, but since we can't get rid of that, if they run on a party nominee to get the ballot, they should be listed on the ballot for that. Last, Mr. Chairman, people who have supported a candidate, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, in a primary, and then when they get to the November election, they said, I don't see my candidate. I supported that person in the primary as a Democrat, but they're not on the ballot as a Democrat. Why? That's what I'm saying. If you're going to run as a party nominee, be on the ballot.
Senator Evan has a question.
Yeah, and this may be for council. I should know this as a member of this committee, but when we say constitutional office, in addition to things like clerk of the court or commissioner or revenue or treasurer, does that include the members of the local governing body, or are they not constitutional offices?
Not constitutional.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, they're not constitutional officers.
Okay, I wish they included the local governing bodies, but that'll be another bill.
Sheriffs, Commonwealth attorneys, treasurers, commissioners of revenue, clerks of court.
That's right.
Circuit court.
That's right.
Are there additional questions of Senator Spruill? Are there people in the Zoom room who want to speak in favor of this bill?
If there is anyone in the Zoom that would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There is no one wishing to speak in favor.
Are there those in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to this bill?
If there is anyone in the Zoom room that would like to speak in opposition of this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chairman, we have 2 speakers.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, you will be first. Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Time's a wasting. Let's go.
Good afternoon, Chairman Deeds and members of the committee. My name is Ron Williams, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as Suffolk's elected city treasurer, and am currently serving in my 41st year in this elected office, which also makes me one of the longest serving constitutional officers and elected officials in Virginia. I am speaking to you today in my capacity as chairman of the Treasurers Association's Legislative Committee, and respectfully ask you to oppose Senate Bill 39. Senate Bill 39 has appeared in similar forms for many years and has been routinely defeated by the legislature, including more than a few times in this committee, most recently in 2020. On behalf of the Treasurers Association and the other elected constitutional officer associations, I can tell you that none of the associations have asked for this, as most of Virginia's constitutional officers, including treasurers, run as independents. We do this in an effort to assure our constituents that all citizens will be treated fairly and equally when seeking service and assistance from our offices. We believe that all of our citizens should be treated the same, irrespective of political leanings.
Mr. Williams, you got to wrap it up.
Okay. I do not let my personal political views come in the way of making decisions related to taxpayers' private and personal information, or allow them to come in the way of hiring the most qualified staff. And in the spirit of wrapping it up, I would just say that I speak on behalf of the 125 elected tribes who strive to make the local offices as nonpartisan as possible each day. And I would just like to say that in closing that I have my utmost respect and admiration and friendship for the bill's patron, Senator Spruill. He formerly represented a portion of Suffolk when he was in the other house of the General Assembly. We've been friends for a long time. I have the utmost respect for him. It's just that the billing, collecting, accounting for, investing the locality's revenue, managing complex, private, and highly technical matters does not need to be made political. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paige Johnson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Paige Johnson. I am the Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Fairfax and Legislative Co-Chair for the Commissioner of Revenue Association of Virginia. I'll try not to be redundant and I'll try and be brief. This bill seeks a remedy for a very small number of localities. However, it will impact all of us. The bill has come up many times before. There are approximately 645 elected constitutional officers, the majority of which run nonpartisan as independents. Partisanship among all constitutional offices is unnecessary as we do not caucus with anyone. We come together in a nonpartisan manner when issues impact us, such as this one. Adding constitutional officers to partisan politics could result in more primaries. Localities will bear the full cost of these primaries. Not all localities that have partisan elections have charter provisions requiring nomination by petition. Enactment of party identification will likely require a charter change to keep elections nonpartisan. In closing, local elections are best served by addressing local issues, not party issues. In our local elections, we are not party connected. We are neighbors serving neighbors. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there others in Zoom land? Is there anybody in the room who needs to speak to it? Okay, Senator Peake has a question to Senator Spruill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and patron. So, having listened to those arguments, I mean, am I correct that if the candidate does not run, get a party nomination, then there is nothing on there? They can run as an independent and get an I by their name and not have an R or a D, correct?
Yes, sir.
So those comments are completely irrelevant if the candidate chooses to run as an independent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, may I, those members who just spoken, especially my one in Suffolk, let's check and see. He's a friend of mine. He ran as a Democrat. He belongs to the Democratic Committee. He ran in the party as a Democrat. On election day, he ran as Ron Williams, no name. All I'm saying, I'm sick and tired of Democrats and Republicans get their party nomination and then hide behind the fact that I don't want to be a Democratic Republican. Run as the independent then. So the gentlemen who spoke, including Fairfax, check it out, see how they run it. They run in their party nomination, get the nomination, then all of a sudden, I'm an independent. You were independent, you went as a party nominee, don't get the nomination. That's run as the independent. They are hiding behind, I don't care which party, they're behind the party nomination. And I'm speaking mostly of Democrats, because of those who I know. Hiding behind the party nomination, get nomination, and then on the ballot, they don't want to be classified as nothing.
So this is a truth and running bill. Truth and running.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there additional discussion or are there motions? Okay. Got a motion to report. And a second. Are there additional motions? Is there further discussion? Open the electronic voting board. Vote green is vote to report. Okay.
Ayes 13, noes 2.
Senator Peake, you have some bills. Do you want to take them up today, or do you want to put them off till next week?
I don't think, what's the board? I mean, y'all are going to vote them down pretty quickly, I suspect. But I'm happy to put them on for review.
Oh, if you'd like to if you'd like to take care of them, that's fine with me. Senate Bill 162.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Let me get to 162. This, yes, my voter registration, social security numbers. That's, members of the committee, that's why I was asking.
This is a bill we've seen before, is
We've
that
seen
correct?
before, it's passed the body twice and been vetoed twice by governors. So it's a familiar bill, and I was asking Senator Eben about the social security numbers. The bill that he had for absentee ballots, he wanted to have the last four numbers of the social security number on there without a witness signature. Well, what's the point of having a social security number if you don't verify it? So this bill, only when you register to vote, it doesn't apply to people who are already registered, but when you register to vote, you put your social security number down there, and the registrar checks it with one of the various government agencies through DMV or to Social Security Administration. That's the gist of it. And they get to vote. If it comes back and there's a question, they get notified. They get to vote provisionally, all of those things. And it's just an election integrity bill. And I brought it well before this 2020 election, and I've continued to bring it. And I would just say, whether you like or don't like any of this election integrity stuff that's going on now, people are raising it. You see the polls. A lot of people don't trust what's going on. This helps keep Virginia, get the trust of the voters so that they can't dispute that illegal people were registering to vote. So if you have this, where they check the social security numbers, you can't have a candidate who loses then go say, oh, the only reason I lost in the Commonwealth is because all these illegal people voted and they didn't check to find out if they were actual citizens. This bill prevents that argument, and it helps the confidence with our elections.
Okay, this is a bill we've seen multiple times before. Are there questions for Senator Peake? Senator Eben.
Just one question, because I hadn't learned until I had my bill, the previous bill that had come up that we put by for the week, about the people who don't have social security numbers who are registered to vote. What do you do in those situations?
How many did you say that was?
I was told they're just 400 currently.
And I don't know if there's a provision in this. To go through it again, we would certainly make that, and Senator Serville, I will say, also has brought that up with people. Some people who are citizens of the Commonwealth do not have social security numbers, and so there aren't many, but they are. So I would make any provision or any amendment to allow for people without U.S. social security numbers have a provision to prove who they are.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Eben, are you done with your questions? Okay, Senator Reeves.
I think Senator Eben had that in his bill, a provision for that, and I'd make the motion, friendly amendment to take that section that he has in his bill and add it to Senator Peake's bill if council says it can go in there to provide for those that don't have it.
That don't have it, and we would make that a conceptual amendment.
Can we do that in concept, do you think? Do you think that language is easily adaptable to this bill? Brooks, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I could do that exactly just because of the context, but I could do something similar where it's just providing for that unique
Do it in
identifier.
concept, and should this bill reach the floor, you would have the opportunity to look at that amendment and see if it,
And this one goes to finance as well, I
Right.
believe. So
Yeah, it does
I
go
would
to finance.
fix that.
That's right. Okay, Senator Reeves has moved in concept that you'll put the same, Senator Sproul seconded. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, is there an additional presentation you'd like to make, or can we hear from other people?
That's it.
Okay, are there people in the Zoom room who would like to speak in favor of Senate Bill 162?
If anyone in the Zoom would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there is one speaker, Mr. Clara Wheeler.
Claire Bell Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler, don't strain your voice. We know you're for the bill. You've spoken for it every year. I think it's come up.
Mr. Chair, I'd say just let the record reflect she's for it.
Well, if she's out there, I want her to have the opportunity to speak.
Ms. Wheeler, you can speak.
Thank you so very much. I've spoken to this bill before, and Senator Peake is very gracious in bringing it again. Many other states do something very similar to this, and in fact, I believe Senator Peake has a copy of the contract that Montana uses to send all of theirs, and Montana pays $1,000 a month. They have all of their new registrations checked. So it's not an expensive procedure, and it makes sure that all of the Social Security numbers that are on voter registrations are correct. As we discussed a couple of years ago on this bill, sometimes people make mistakes when they're writing down their Social Security number. And then if it's a mistake, it goes with them for years and years. So this would help the voter make sure they've got the right Social Security number. I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. Thank you very much. Are there people who would like to speak in opposition to this bill in the Zoom room?
If you're in the Zoom and you would like to speak in opposition of this bill, please raise your hand now. Mr. Chairman, at this time, there are no speakers.
Okay, are there people in the room who would like to speak in favor or against this bill? Okay.
Move to report as amended. Move to report to Finance.
Do we want, does Senator Peake, do you have any closing words for us?
I think y'all have got it.
Okay, Senator Reeves.
Move to report to Finance as amended in concept.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Eben.
Move to PBI.
Is there a second? A motion to PBI and a second. Is there any discussion of that motion? Substitute motion takes precedence. All in favor of the PBI and the bill will vote green on the electronic voting machine.
Oh, yeah, Pete,
Senator Peake, you can vote right there.
well, that's right. There we go.
Okay.
Daggone it. Looks like I'm
Has
going to
9,
lose
no
again.
6.
Okay, Senator Peake, you have another bill, I think.
167, I believe, same-day voter registration. It's to repeal it.
Repeal voter registration.
No, same-day voter
Oh,
registration.
basically, we passed same-day voter registration last year,
Yeah.
year before, something to take effect
Yeah.
this November, and you want to repeal it.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that pretty much covers it. I just think it puts an undue burden on our registrars to have people come up on the day of election. Then the registrar's supposed to verify everything, and then they get to vote that day. It's
Senator Peake, have you studied the Utah system? I mean, it's not a burden out there. It works very well.
I have not studied the Utah system, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there questions for Senator Peake? Are there people in the Zoom room who would like to speak in favor of Senate Bill 167?
If you would like to support, if you'd like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chairman, there are 2 speakers.
Pamela Berg is the first name I see. If you'd like to speak, Ms. Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pamela Berg. I'm testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. We oppose the repeal of same-day voter registration law passed last year. Many of us League members serve as officers of election or election observers. In every election, at least one voter, and often several, arrive at our polling places ready, eager, and proud to vote, only to be turned away because the voter has moved, even from just a few miles away. 18-year-olds who did register quite frequently have not shown up in the system, which is worrisome. If people are eligible to vote in the precinct, they should be allowed to cast their ballots. The same-day voter registration law is set to take effect by this year's general election. Our research shows that our other states find that it works. They have no problems to speak of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Wheeler, I see your name up there. Dr. Wheeler.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I am strongly in favor of this bill. If a person comes to a voting precinct on election day or in the 45 days before election and they want to register to vote, the registrar has to make sure that they are not registered someplace else or that they haven't already voted someplace else in Virginia. If they come to a precinct on election day, that means they have to check into Veris or whatever the new Veris is going to be. And that means that the election official in the precinct will be able to see all of the Social Security numbers for everybody because they have to check statewide. That, I think, might cause a lot of people a little heartburn in thinking that somebody can look at every Social Security number in Virginia. If you're going to vote, you should be able to figure it out before you come to the election place. And we've got plenty of time to do it under the current before October. I think we should have to verify in advance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. Are there others in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition who have not already spoken?
If you're in the Zoom room and you would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there is one more speaker, Mrs. Mary McDaniel.
Mary McDaniel, yes, ma'am. Mary McDaniel. Ms. McDaniel, are you there?
I'm here. Sorry. Analyst, I'm speaking in opposition to this bill. I am an officer of election, and there are every election some voters who come in who believe that they have registered to vote because they believe that they checked the right box when they got their Virginia's driver's license and it did not come through. I would like for them to be able to vote provisionally on election day. Go ahead and do the regular process. And if you're concerned about someone putting their ballot into the scanner when they're maybe not entitled to vote, then make it a provisional, but make it more straightforward for the registrars and the boards to then approve those voters' ballots after the fact.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McDaniel. Are there people in the room who would like to speak to this bill? Senator Peake, do you want to close it out?
No, got it covered, Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there motions on the bill? Got a motion and a second, got a substitute motion,
To PBI.
and is that motion seconded? Okay, the substitute motion takes precedence. Open the electronic voting machine, all in favor of PBI, vote green. Okay.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Thank you, Senator Peake. The last bill on the calendar is 306. Now, in all honesty, this bill is very similar in intent to Senate Bill number 3 that's gone by, and so I think it's probably fair for this bill to go by, too.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. With that being done, we'll rise.
Mr. Chairman, I had.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Senator Bell has one bill left. I apologize.
Yep.
It's 463. It's not, no, that's fine, Senator Bell. This was a bill, and I don't, Senator Servell's not here, but this is an idea that we took up in that study committee on on campaign finance. I'm not sure we really came to resolution on it.
Mr. Chairman, actually worked with Senator Servell quite a bit on this, and it was based on the recommendations came out of the Campaign Finance Joint Subcommittee. I'm not going to tell you this without, covers quite a bit of ground. But the thing that strikes me is that right now we're one of the only states that don't have any kind of guidance on the use of personal funds. It's kind of the Wild Wild West. So what this does is, I think, puts us with some transparency and also creates some good protections. One of the things that I don't probably have to tell any of you is I think the people down here that I work with, and I mean both sides of the aisle, everybody I've worked with, I think have been pretty honest people. Unfortunately, the public doesn't see us like that. And I think having barriers here to make sure campaign donations are not abused or used for personal use is a good thing to do. This specifically bans personal use by the candidate or family, and it lists that legal uses are there. So if you have a campaign expenditure, you can get reimbursed to include campaign expenditures, transfer to other campaigns, child care. It prohibits doing things like paying your mortgage or rent. That wouldn't obviously be for a home, not for a campaign office. Club memberships, non-campaign travel expenses, or even paying your child's tuition. Again, these are pretty standard practice, but believe it or not, these things have happened before. It also requires the State Board of Elections to provide guidance by request from any candidate on any expense within 60 days or 20 days ahead of an election if they so request it. There's a pretty good set of criteria if a complaint is filed. The only people who can file complaints are a contributor, if they feel like something's been done wrong, or someone who can vote for that person. So if you're from another district and you don't meet that, we've tried to do this to try to get rid of frivolous complaints that could clog the system. Once a complaint's there, the Department of Election has to notify that candidate within 24 hours, and with 10 days, they have to come to a decision if the complaint is complete and credible, and if so, send it to the Board of Elections. Excuse me. The State Board of Elections then begins a confidential preliminary investigation. A couple good points. If at any time the candidate returns the money before the investigation is complete, it ends. It goes away. So if a candidate perhaps did something and they realize, oh, maybe that wasn't a good idea, they can put the money back and get rid of it. The other thing is, at the end of the day, if the State Board of Election finds the complaint to be accurate, but they believe the candidate was acting in good faith, then they just have to repay it. There are fines if they find that that wasn't the case. And I think that's important because, let's be honest, when you're a new candidate, some of these laws can be confusing. And sometimes people might make mistakes. So I think it's important to have those guardrails on this. A couple of other things that I'll just point out is this does require the State Board and also the Attorney General to provide guidance and to update this on a recurring basis. Because as technology changes, I think these, campaign stuff is going to change again. It always changes. The Internet's changed it a lot over the last decade. But I think this is a good thing for confidence for voters to have in the process and to make sure that campaign funds are not used for things that are personal or to personally benefit anybody. With that, Mr. Chairman, I know there's a lot in here. I'll be happy to try to answer anybody's questions.
There's an awful lot in here, Senator Bill. Let me ask you this. If you have a campaign office full of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and at the end of a long day of knocking on doors or whatever you're doing, you order Domino's pizza and you pay for it with campaign for the kids in the office, are you violating this statute if you have a piece of that, if the candidate has a piece of that pizza?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good question. My interpretation would be no, because as the candidate, interacting with your staff and motivating them is a good thing to do and is an accepted practice that I think candidates do. But I'm not going to tell you there aren't going to be instances where you're going to have those kind of things happen. But I think this also speaks to the more egregious things, which I think are pretty obvious. You shouldn't be paying your mortgage and rent or your kids' tuition in college with campaign funds.
And I agree with you 100%, but I think the question I asked really speaks, the piece of pizza would qualify as something you're converting to your use, and probably it's also a household food item. It's something you have in your house. Is that what that language, household food item, though, is designed to distinguish between a piece of pizza and a can of beans that you're going to take to your house?
Mr. Chairman, I would respond, that's designed so if it's primarily feeding your family, and I'm happy to modify that to clarify it, but it's designed to differentiate that from what is considered a genuine campaign expense. And I would say if you're buying food for your campaign staff, that's directly related to your campaign. And in your example, if you're in your campaign office, that's even more related to your campaign. And it's clearly differentiated from stock in your fridge for your family and home.
I got you. Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you, Senator Bell, for including child care expenses, as that has been an issue there have been a lot of questions about across the country. And a similar question that has come is with adult care services, if you are also caring for an elderly parent. Would you be willing to amend on line 356 child care to say dependent care?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very friendly and a terrific amendment. Absolutely.
I so move.
Second.
So the amendment, you would replace child, you would just replace the word child with dependent for dependent care expenses. Is that the amendment?
Yes, that's the amendment.
Okay, does everybody understand? Okay, all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bill's amended. Senator McClellan, are you through with your questions? Senator Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bell, I too, like Senator Deeds, you say a home mortgage, I get that, but rent and utility payment, and doesn't, we all have campaign offices, or at least I do, and I pay that. And then I'm also concerned about lines 365, if I buy campaign T-shirts, right? Everybody likes campaign swag, hats and stuff. I don't know that that's carved out. There's a few more things I think, Mr. Chairman and Senator Bell, I think I need to go through it a little bit more and play devil's advocate, but I think you could scoop some people up unwillingly on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I was out in the hallway taking a phone call when Senator Bell was making his presentation, but I was present for probably 12 hours of committee hearings where we debated and discussed this and arrived at what I think is this bill. And I guess I just want to ask counsel. My recollection is the intent of the committee in adopting this specific regime was to basically parallel exactly federal law, and that it's my memory that we put an enactment clause, which I think is enactment clause number 3 on here, so that we could take all of the decisions that the Federal Election Commission has decided, which there are dozens, if not hundreds, that provide further clarification as to exactly what is and what is not a personal expense, and to indicate that those opinions are persuasive and would be an effective defense to anything that comes up in the state side of things. Is that consistent with council's interpretation of this?
Mr. Chair, Senator Serval, yes, that is consistent with the approach taken in this bill.
Great. And another question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Servell?
Thanks. I mean, wouldn't many of the questions of the type that Senator Reeves just raised have probably already been addressed, or I don't know, probably 90% chance they've been addressed by the Federal Election Commission at some point, given how long those have been on the books and been interpreted and advisory opinions are being issued about it?
Mr. Chairman, that is a distinct possibility, although I'm not aware of any specific decisions of the FEC. So.
Okay, well, I'll try and find some guidance on T-shirts while we're listening.
Senator McClellan?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the line about clothing actually raised another concern, and let me put it a little bit in context. I think women candidates have a little bit different consideration than male candidates, in that it is very difficult to wear the same outfit in the same public event. There are some candidates who may not have the personal funds to buy a new wardrobe, but would need to buy a wardrobe because, unfortunately, male candidates can wear the same outfit and change their tie and no one notices. Female candidates cannot. So my hold on. And I don't know if that's been addressed by the federal laws or not. So my question is, has it, number one? And number two, would this apply to both if you purchase that for your campaign funds, or if someone donates it to you and you'd have to report it as a in-kind donation?
Mr. Chairman, I have an answer to the question.
Do you have the answer?
Yes, sir. I'm looking at the FEC .gov website, help for candidates and committees on making disbursements for personal use. And under clothing, it says, the campaign cannot pay for attire for political functions, for example, a new tuxedo or dress. But it can pay for clothing of a de minimis value that is used in the campaign, such as T-shirts or caps imprinted with a campaign slogan.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair.
Senator McClellan?
I've got a concern about that then, because that's under FEC guidelines. A female candidate could not purchase a new suit out of campaign funds or have one donated for a debate or a gala or whatever. And I think that could, if candidates had to pay for that out of pocket, limit their ability to run. Would this prohibition apply to donations of clothing And if so, I would like to see some sort of exemption or allowance for clothing purchased for campaign events.
Thanks.
Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question dealing with the ability for, in my community, I'm often asked to sponsor certain things for the charity golf tournament, for the high school boosters, for a local charity event that many of us use our campaign funds for. Where would that lie in this bill?
Mr. Chairman, those contributions would not be prohibited. They would be allowed. I can let council elaborate on that, but we did cover that in there. Mr. Chairman, the other thing I would point out, I'm not opposed to what Senator McClellan pointed out, and I think there could be an inequity there. It's going to be hard to laundry list every one of these, but I will say that this bill requires the Board of Education and the Attorney General to provide guidelines. And I think those guidelines can go into many, many more what-ifs than we could possibly get in the code. Normally, we don't try to do every one of those in the code.
What I was going to suggest after we get through all the questions is we either pass this bill in concept, understanding that you and McClellan might work on an amendment, or we put this off for a week while you work on an amendment to bring back to the committee.
Mr. Chair.
But Senator Boysko's got a question first, and then Senator Eben, and then Senator Peake, you're on the list. And Senator Reeves is on the list before you, though. Okay? You're done? Okay, Senator Eben.
Yeah, just to Senator McClellan's point, I don't know, I'll leave it to Senator Bell and you whether you want to amend it, but on line 365, you might want to say a clothing purchase that is for personal use or something like that. Because if it says, I don't wear a tuxedo, but if I was going to a gala dinner for a political purpose and felt the need to rent a tuxedo and couldn't cover it with personal funds, I wouldn't think that would be a violation. But if you want to say clothing purchase for personal use, or that is not used for campaigning, I think that would be a distinction.
What if you wear it for a campaign event, and then when the campaign's over, you keep wearing it? Senator Reeves and then Senator Peake.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for council. I just have a question about the number 3506, the regulations adopted pursuant to the second enactment. Wouldn't that just really say that federal law is going to trump everything we're doing in here?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves. So the idea of the third enactment is for the state board to adopt current FEC regulations as state board regulations. The state board could go back and amend those regulations afterwards, but the bulk of FEC regulations would be basically a starting precedent for whatever the board does next. If the board wants to diverge from those opinions, they can, though there's no reason they can't.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, when the time comes, I'd like to speak to the bill.
Okay, Senator Peake.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I was going to say I agree with your proposal. I agree in concept. I don't want to pass it in concept because there's too much going on, but I have Reeves' concern about the federal ruling. I would ask that we pass it by for the week to address some of these issues, folks to get with Mr. Bell and let's clean it up. But I think it's a good idea. Most of the things in there I agree with.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Surville.
A couple of things. First of all, we debated this for hours, both last year on the floor and privately and whatever, trying to figure this out. We went through, I think, 3 different drafts, and that's the reason we sent it to committee. And we debated for hours in committee over the last year.
Last fall, yeah.
And we ended up settling on the fact that a lot of these issues have been heavily vetted, discussed, debated nationally, and that the FEC had sort of reached clarity on a lot of these things that we were debating ourselves. And we thought that incorporating the federal standard would just be a much cleaner, easier way to deal with this rather than trying to invent a new wheel ourselves. And I would just also note, just in poking around, that the FEC dealt with the clothing issue back in 2009 because Sarah Palin got a $150,000 dress from the RNC. And the FEC didn't think that was good. And she returned the dress after that. But I would just note that I've seen other clothing purchases on other candidates for state office, men's clothing purchases, I would note, not women's. And that gave me a lot of pause and concern that people were using their campaign accounts to buy clothing for themselves. And I understand there may be issues with that, but that's something I got a problem with. But I guess we'll discuss and debate that over the next week while this bill is carried over. But these issues have been figured out across the rest of the country, and that was the point of
Mr. Chairman, to save the, I respect the committee's time, and first off, I think we had good discussion here, and some good points were brought up. My suggestion would, I agree with the committee, and I would appreciate if we could pass it by. We made a lot of progress. I know we've been working on it a lot, but I think we're at a good place, and we can make it much better. If the committee would indulge us, I'd prefer to pass it by for the day.
Okay, there's a motion and a second that the bill be passed by for the week. Is that, okay, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. There's nothing else on the docket, so the committee will rise.